Chapter 1 Mist and Blood in Qingming. The autumn mist hung thick over Qingming Mountain, wrapping the endless green ridges in a pale, hazy veil. The air smelled of damp pine and wild chrysanthemum, a serene scent that had lingered over this remote borderland for centuries. To ordinary travelers, Qingming Prefecture was a forgotten corner of the great Qian dynasty, a place far from the capital's bustling chaos, where the only sounds were bird songs and the gurgle of mountain streams. But Shen Yu knew better. Beneath this peaceful facade lurked cold, dripping blood and endless killing intent. She knelt on a moss-covered stone platform at the foot of the mountain, her plain indigo linen robe dyed slightly with fallen leaf stains. Her slender fingers moved steadily, sorting dried herbs into coarse paper packets. The faint scar on her left wrist, hidden under her sleeve, throbbed faintly, a silent reminder of the night her entire clan was burned to ash. It had been 7 years. 7 years since the imperial army stormed the Shen Manor, labeling the century-old scholarly martial clan traitors who colluded with foreign enemies. 7 years since she'd hidden in a pile of charred wood, watching her parents, elders, and clansmen die in flames and sword strikes. 7 years since she'd buried her name, her identity, and all her youthful innocence, wandering the rivers and lakes as a nameless herbal girl. A soft rustle broke the mountain silence. Shen Yu's eyelashes fluttered slightly, no trace of panic on her delicate face. She did not lift her head, continuing to tie the herb packets with rough twine, but her senses stretched to the limit, capturing every subtle movement in the surrounding woods. The footsteps were light, steady, and silent, definitely not ordinary mountain hunters or travelers. Only top-tier martial artists could tread on fallen leaves without stirring a single crisp sound. A man stepped out from the thick mist. He wore a black Imperial Guard uniform, the silver wolf emblem embroidered on his chest glinting faintly in the weak autumn sunlight. His black hair was tied loosely with a plain silk ribbon, a few strands falling loosely over his forehead. His features were sharp and handsome, with a lazy, careless smile curving his lips, yet his dark eyes held a deep, unfathomable calm that never matched his casual demeanor. He leaned against an old pine tree, hands tucked into his waist belt, and stared at the kneeling girl with undisguised curiosity. "Herbal girl," his voice was low, clear, with the unique lazy tone of a man who had seen countless worldly affairs. "You're awfully calm for someone who's just been surrounded by 3 first-class martial artists." Shen Yu finally stood up slowly, brushing the dust off her robe. Her face was pale, her features gentle and refined, yet her eyes held a cold clarity that did not belong to an ordinary teenage girl. She glanced at the three hidden figures faintly visible in the mist, all elite Imperial guards, their killing intent locked firmly on her body. "I'm just a mountain herbalist," she said softly, her American-intoned ancient dialogue simple and firm. "I cure illnesses and pick herbs all year round. I have no martial skills, no worldly grudges. What reason do your excellencies have to surround me?" Li Zioqi chuckled, pushing off the tree trunk and walking toward her step by step. His boots stepped on the fallen leaves, making a faint rustling sound, breaking the dead silence of the mountain forest. No martial skills. He stopped 3 feet away from her, his dark eyes sweeping over her slender figure, finally settling on her nimble, herb-stained fingers. Ordinary herbalists can detect hidden Imperial guards 100 feet away. Ordinary girls won't keep their breathing steady when facing 3 killing auras. Little girl, you're lying very poorly. Shen Yu's expression did not change. She bent down, packed her herb basket steadily, and slung it over her shoulder. "Your Excellency sees too much. In these remote mountains, any stranger could be a threat. A living person will always be cautious." Her tone was flat, without flattery or fear, neither humble nor pushy. Li Zioqi's smile faded a little. He had traveled all over the dynasty, met countless civilians, officials, and martial artists. Most ordinary people would tremble in fear when facing Imperial guards, either begging for mercy or panicking to explain. Yet this girl was calm like still water, as if the deadly siege around her was nothing more than a trivial mountain breeze. His intuition told him this girl was extraordinary. Qingming Prefecture has had 7 sect murders in half a month. Li Zioqi's voice turned cold, the lazy casualness fading completely, replaced by the stern solemnity of an imperial investigator. All the victims are low-level disciples of major rivers and lakes sects. Their deaths are identical, hearts torn out, no traces of mortal wounds, only a faint black demonic aura left on the corpses. The local government. I know nothing about rivers and lakes killings. Li Zioqi watched her quietly for a long time. The mountain mist drifted between them, separating their figures vaguely. After a moment, he suddenly laughed again, the cold sternness fading away. "Fine." He waved his hand, and the 3 hidden guards in the mist instantly withdrew their killing intent, retreating silently into the woods. "I believe you for now." Shen Yu lifted her eyes slightly, a trace of confusion flashing across her face. She had prepared countless excuses and even hidden self-defense moves, but she never expected him to let her go so easily. However, Li Zioqi stepped forward, narrowing the distance between them, his voice lowered, soft and ambiguous, Qingming Mountain is no longer safe recently. The dark forces are stirring, and the rivers and lakes are in chaos. A lonely girl staying in the mountains is too dangerous. He paused, his dark eyes sharp as blades, seeming to see through all her secrets. Stay alive, little herbal girl. Because I have a feeling we will meet again soon. And next time, I will dig out all the secrets you're hiding. After saying this, he turned and walked into the thick mist, his black figure quickly disappearing into the hazy mountain fog without a single backward glance. The mountain forest returned to silence. Shen Yu stood motionless for a long while, until the sound of his footsteps completely faded. Only then did she slowly raise her left wrist, lifting her sleeve. Under the pale sunlight, a faint crimson phoenix birthmark bloomed on her fair skin, like a dormant phoenix sealed for 1,000 years, quiet yet full of powerful hidden vitality. A cold, bitter smile tugged at her lips. Secrets. She had carried them for 7 years. The Dark Vein sect, the corrupt imperial court, the bloody conspiracy that annihilated her clan, all the debts, all the bloodshed, she would settle them one by one with her own hands. The mist of Qingming Mountain still surged endlessly, covering the mountains and rivers, covering the buried blood and hatred, and also covering the grand storm that was about to sweep the entire Great Qian dynasty. The displaced phoenix had woken up. The mortal world's turmoil had just begun. Chapter 2, Black Vein Residue and Phoenix Shadow. The mountain mist thinned as the midday sun climbed above the pine ridges. Dead, she lowered her herb basket to the ground, knelt again on the mossy stone, and stretched out her left wrist once more. The crimson phoenix birthmark underneath her pale skin was no longer faint, it pulsed faintly, a warm, throbbing rhythm that matched the beat of her heart, as if the ancient seal buried in her blood had been stirred awake by the Imperial Guard's sudden appearance and the mention of the Dark Vein murders. 7 years of hiding had taught her to trust no one, not a single soul in the entire Great Qian dynasty. Li Zioqi's lazy smile and unreadable eyes were far more dangerous than the cold-blooded killers roaming Qingming's mist valleys. Ordinary Imperial Guards did not move with the silence of a shadow, nor did they possess the sharp intuition to smell a hidden martial artist beneath a peasant's plain robes. He was concealing something, just as she was. And concealment always meant danger. Shen Yu flipped open the wooden herb basket and reached beneath the layer of dried chrysanthemums and wild angelica. Her fingers brushed aside common medicinal herbs to grasp a small, dull jade bottle carved with twisted dark patterns, the forbidden emblem of the Dark Vein sect, a mark she had memorized in the fire and blood of her clan's annihilation. She uncorked the bottle with her thumb. A wisp of thin, black smoke curled out, cold and odorless, drifting upward for a moment before dissipating into the mountain air. This was the residual demonic aura left behind by the recent sect murders, a tiny trace she had secretly collected from the latest victim's corpse 3 nights prior, before the local Yaman runners had arrived to cordon off the scene. No mortal poison, no ordinary martial energy could leave such a residue. It was the core remnant of the Dark Vein's forbidden art heart-devouring vein technique. The technique her clan's traitorous auxiliary disciple had used to open the manor's back gate for the Imperial Army 7 years ago. The technique that had torn through her father's protective sword barrier like thin paper, that had dyed the entire Shen Manor's stone courtyards crimson with clan blood. Her knuckles tightened around the jade bottle until her fingertips blanched white. For 7 years, she had lurked in Qingming's remote mountains, laying low, gathering clues, biding her time. She had thought the Dark Vein sect would remain hidden in the dark depths of the Jianghu, slowly accumulating strength after their brutal defeat 30 years ago. She had thought their atrocities were confined to secret blood feuds and hidden sect disputes, not open, rampant killings in a border prefecture under imperial rule. Now they were killing openly. They were leaving traces on purpose. It was not random murder. It was a declaration. Shen Yu closed her eyes, and scenes of that terrible night flooded her mind unbidden. Flames roaring high enough to swallow the moon, the clatter of broken swords, the desperate shouts of her clansmen, and the cold, mocking voice of a young man standing atop the burning manor gate Murong Han. Even at 16, Murong Han had carried the cruel calm of a born killer. He had stood amid the charred wood and fallen bodies, his white robes spotless and clean, and told the trembling young orphan hiding in the ashes, the Shen clan's phoenix bloodline should have burned with the rest of your trash kin. Surviving will only make you watch the world you know burn again and again. She had thought those words empty revenge talk. Now she understood. Murong Han was back in Qingming. He was drawing attention to the border mountains on purpose, stirring up chaos, forcing the imperial court to send elite investigators, people exactly like Li Zioqi. He was playing a game, and Qingming Prefecture was the chessboard. Every dead sect disciple was a piece moved to lure out hidden forces, whether imperial or rogue Jianghu. And she, the last surviving phoenix of the Shen clan, was the final prize he had waited 7 years to hunt. A soft rustle of wind swept through the pine branches above her head. Shen Yu snapped out of her memories, her eyes flying open, clear and cold. She recorked the jade bottle and tucked it back into the bottom of her herb basket in one fluid, practiced motion, erasing all traces of the forbidden aura. Her fingers brushed the dried herbs once more, restoring the basket to the plain, unremarkable appearance of a common mountain herbalist's tool. She would not allow her hatred to cloud her judgment. Not after 7 years of surviving on nothing but caution and vengeance. Shen Yu slung the basket over her shoulder and turned toward the narrow mountain path winding deeper into the mist-shrouded valleys. The shallow mountain woods were no longer safe. Li Zioqi's appearance meant imperial eyes were fixed on this patch of forest. The dark veins lurking killers were also sweeping the mountains for survivors and clues. Staying in the open was equivalent to walking into a trap. Her only safe haven was the hidden Mist Gorge, a forbidden valley deep in Qingming's mountain range that locals feared to enter. Thick spiritual fog lingered there year-round, masking all martial auras and blood traces, shielding both cultivators and fugitives from detection. It was also the final hidden refuge her father had told her of before his death, the last place that held Shen clan relics and secrets. The path grew steeper and narrower the farther she walked. Pine needles and fallen leaves covered the stone steps, softening her footsteps. The autumn wind carried distant bird calls and the faint gurgle of mountain springs, but Shen Yu's senses remained sharp, scanning every shadow, every rustling bush for hidden danger. Half an hour into her journey, a faint, pained gasp cut through the mountain silence. The sound was weak, human, and close no more than 20 feet off the main path, hidden in a thick thicket of wild osmanthus bushes. Shen Yu froze mid-step, her hand instinctively drifting toward the hidden short sword strapped to her inner waist, a blade forged by her grandfather's own hands, small enough to conceal, sharp enough to sever martial energy veins with one strike. She hesitated only a second. Ordinary villagers would flee from unknown sounds in a forbidden mountain, but she was no ordinary villager. If it was a dark vein ambush, she needed to know. If it was a wounded survivor of the recent sect murders, she might gain new clues about Murong Han's plan. She adjusted her plain expression, masking all killing intent and vigilance, and stepped gently toward the osmanthus thicket. Beneath the blooming white flowers and tangled branches lay a young man, no older than 20. His light blue sect robes were torn and soaked through with dark, congealed blood. A gaping, brutal wound split open his chest, the flesh torn apart in the exact same pattern as the 7 previous murder victims, clean, inhuman rips, no blade marks, only faint black demonic frost crusting the edges of the injury. He was still breathing, shallow and ragged, his eyes half-lidded, consciousness slipping away with every passing second. When he heard footsteps approach, he forced his eyes open, trembling fingers scraping weakly at the dirt, trying to crawl away in terror. D. Dark vein, demon art, they're looking for the Phoenix remnant. His voice was barely a whisper, broken and blood-clogged. Mirong young master, knows the Shen bloodline lives? Qingming Gorge, ancient seal. Shen Yu's breath caught in her throat. These were no random dying ramblings. This disciple knew the truth. He knew she was alive. He knew the core secret of the Shen clan, the ancient phoenix seal hidden deep within Hidden Mist Gorge. Before she could speak, before she could press for more answers, a thin, cold black thread of demonic energy suddenly shot out from the shadows above the thicket. It moved faster than human eyes could follow, piercing straight through the young disciple's temple in an instant. The disciple's body jolted once, then went completely limp. His eyes froze wide open, the last flicker of life vanishing in a blink. The faint words on his lips died unspoken. Silence crashed over the woods once again, heavier and colder than before. Shen Yu's head snapped upward, her gaze sharp as drawn blade, locking onto the treetop shadows dozens of feet above. A figure stood silently on the thick pine branch, hovering above the thicket like a ghost. He wore a snow-white robe, spotless and elegant, contrasting sharply with the blood-soaked mountain woods beneath his feet. His long black hair fell loose over his shoulders, tied only with a simple silver hairpin. His features were peerlessly beautiful, yet cold enough to freeze flowing water, no trace of warmth in his narrow, phoenix-shaped eyes. Mirong Han. After 7 years, the man who had destroyed her entire clan stood before her once more. He did not leap down immediately. He simply stood on the treetop, his cold gaze sweeping slowly over Shen Yu's plain indigo robes, over her unadorned face, finally settling on the faint pulse of the phoenix birthmark faintly visible at her wrist, where her sleeve had slipped down slightly during her movement. A low, mocking laugh escaped his thin lips, soft and cold, drifting down through the mountain wind. After 7 years of hiding in the dirt, my little phoenix, he said, his American-toned ancient speech smooth and icy, you finally dare to show a trace of yourself. I've been waiting so long to watch you fly out of this cage. Chapter 3, Phoenix Blood and Blade Showdown. The wind died instantly. Every rustling leaf, every trickling stream, every faint breath of mountain air seemed to freeze beneath Mirong Han's icy gaze. The autumn sunlight filtering through the pine canopy turned pale, as if even the sunlight dared not linger too close to the man standing atop the treetop. Shen Yu did not flinch. Fear had burned out of her soul 7 years ago, consumed in the same fire that turned her clan to ashes. What remained was only cold resolve and a quiet, smoldering hatred that had tempered longer and sharper than any mortal blade. She slowly straightened her slouched herbalist posture. The meek, cautious air of a common mountain girl faded away little by little, replaced by a restrained, noble poise inherited from the century-old Shen clan. Her dark eyes lifted, locking steadily onto Muronghan's cold phoenix eyes across the empty air, no humility, no retreat. Muronghan. She spoke his name clearly, her voice soft yet unshaken, cutting through the dead silence of the forest. You've spent 7 years searching for me. Just to kill the last remnant of the Shen bloodline with your own hands. Muronghan's lips curved into a colder, more disdainful smile. He shifted his weight slightly, his white robe fluttering gently in the stagnant wind, not a speck of dust staining his fabric despite standing above a bloodied corpse. His every move carried the arrogant grace of a supreme Jianghe powerhouse, treating life and death like trivial dust. Kill you, he chuckled lowly, the sound sharp and cold, like ice scraping against stone. If I wanted you dead, you would have turned to ash the night your clan fell. I let you live, little phoenix. I let you crawl in the mud for 7 years, just to let you grow. Grow. Shen Yu's fingers curled tighter around the hidden hilt of her short sword beneath her robe, her knuckles taut. Grow strong enough for you to hunt. Precisely. Muronghan's figure flickered. No footsteps, no jumping momentum, no trace of martial aura fluctuation. He simply vanished from the pine branch, his figure melting into the thin mountain mist like a ghost. In the next blink, he stood 10 feet in front of Shen Yu, his elegant face inches away from hers, his cold breath brushing lightly against her forehead. His speed defied ordinary martial arts logic. It was the unique movement technique of the Dark Vein sect, Mist Shadow Vanish, a forbidden skill that blurred the line between mortal flesh and demonic shadow. Ordinary cultivators would be stunned and terrified by such sudden, eerie speed, their minds blank and their bodies frozen. But Shen Yu reacted in an instant. She twisted her wrist sharply, drawing her grandfather's short sword in a silver flash. The blade was slender and frosted bright, forged with ancient Shen clan spiritual iron, carrying the pure, righteous sword intent that had suppressed demonic arts for generations. The sword light sliced straight toward Muronghan's throat, clean and ruthless, holding no hesitation or mercy. Clang! A clear, piercing metal collision exploded through the forest. Muronghan raised 2 fingers casually, pinching the sharp blade between his index and middle finger effortlessly. The formidable sword force that could split steel and shatter stone was completely locked in his grip, unable to advance an inch. The edge of the sword trembled violently, vibrating so fast it blurred into a silver shadow, yet it could not leave a single scratch on his fair fingertips. Still so sharp-tempered. Murong Han's eyes narrowed slightly, a hint of playful cruelty flashing in his cold pupils. He stared down at the phoenix birthmark throbbing faintly on her exposed wrist, the red glow growing brighter with her surging sword intent and boiling blood. The Shen Phoenix bloodline is indeed extraordinary. After 7 years of suppression and concealment, it still holds such pure power. No wonder the ancient seal in Hidden Mist Gorge only responds to your flesh and blood. Shen Yu's heart sank sharply. The dying disciple's words were true. Murong Han knew everything about the Phoenix Seal, about the Hidden Mist Gorge relic, about the last secret of the Shen clan. All her hiding and planning over 7 years had never escaped his surveillance. "What do you want from the seal?" she asked coldly, her gaze never leaving his eyes, searching for the true purpose beneath his endless mockery and killing intent. Murong Han tilted his head slightly, his fingers tightening gently on the sword blade. A wisp of black demonic aura seeped out from his fingertips, creeping along the silver sword edge like a living snake, eroding the righteous spiritual light of the Shen clan inch by inch. The Phoenix Seal holds the root of the ancient heavenly Phoenix scripture, he said plainly, as if speaking of an ordinary triviality. A scripture that can reshape mortal bones, transcend Jianghu limits, and even shake the imperial dynasty's foundational fate. Your ancestors guarded it for thousands of years, treating it as a supreme treasure. But they were all fools burying supreme power in the dirt, clinging to trivial loyalty and righteousness. "I will take the seal," he continued, his tone turning icy and decisive. "I will refine the Phoenix scripture with my dark vein demonic arts, merge righteousness and evil into one, and overturn the entire great Qian world. The imperial court, the orthodox sects, the old order that has suppressed my dark vein for decades, all of it will crumble under my feet." Shen Yu's eyes turned colder. "You will use my clan's heritage to fuel your demonic tyranny." "Your clan's heritage?" Murong Han laughed out loud, the laughter full of scorn. "The Shen clan served the imperial court loyally for 300 years. What did they get? Framed as traitors, massacred overnight, their bones buried in unmarked graves. Loyalty is the most useless joke in this Jianghu." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a low, bewitching whisper, tempting and dangerous. "Shen Yu, abandon your pointless hatred. Join me. With your phoenix blood and my dark vein power, we can rule this world together. You can avenge your clan, crush the imperial forces that destroyed your family, and stand above all living beings." A fleeting silence fell. The offer was tempting beyond measure. For 7 years, her only driving force was revenge. To overthrow the forces that had annihilated her clan, to make every accomplice pay for their blood debt. Murong Han's words pierced straight into the deepest, darkest desire in her heart. But only for a moment. Shen Yu's wrist twisted violently, abandoning the locked sword force. She released her grip on the short sword, letting it be held fast in Murong Han's fingers, while her free hand shot forward like lightning, fingertips carrying condensed spiritual energy, striking straight for his vital chest meridian. She never negotiated with a killer who burned her home. She never compromised with the devil who bathed her clan in blood. Murong Han's smile faded completely. He released the sword in a flicker, retreating half a step backward, easily dodging her fatal strike. The silver short sword clattered to the mossy stone ground, the sound sharp and abrupt in the quiet forest. Stubborn as ever. His eyes turned pitch black, thick demonic auras surging out from his body instantly, sweeping across the entire woodland like a raging black tide. The temperature plummeted sharply, and countless dead leaves on the ground turned to black ash in an instant. Since you refuse to walk the easy path, I will bind you by force. I will take you to Hidden Mist Gorge myself. I will awaken the Phoenix Seal with your blood, whether you wish it or not. The terrifying demonic pressure pressed down on Shen Yu's body, weighing on her bones like a 1,000-ton boulder. Her knees trembled slightly, and her breathing turned heavy. The gap between their strengths was insurmountable. Murong Han had already stepped into the top-tier realm of Jianghu masters, while she was still struggling between mortal and spiritual cultivation. Death was close at hand, just as the black demonic tide was about to swallow her whole. A lazy, clear voice suddenly drifted over from the distant mountain path, carrying a faint smile and undisguised provocation, cutting through the heavy demonic pressure like a sharp blade. Dark Vein Sect's young master, killing people and bullying civilians in Imperial territory. Do you really think no one dares to stop you? Murong Han's expression darkened instantly. He turned his head sharply, gazing toward the source of the voice. Li Zioqi stood at the end of the winding mountain path, his black Imperial Guard uniform fluttering in the wind, his hands still tucked casually in his waist belt. His lazy smile was still on his lips, but his dark eyes were cold and sharp, locked firmly on Murong Han's demonic figure. The hidden Imperial Guards who had retreated earlier spread out silently behind him, forming a tight encirclement, their blade glints cold and gleaming in the sunlight. The three forces finally confronted each other in the Qingming Mountain woods. The last phoenix of the fallen clan, the demonic young master of the dark vein, and the unfathomable Imperial Guard hiding endless secrets. The quiet border mountains were completely torn open by the surging undercurrent. The grand storm of the great Qian dynasty had truly arrived. Since you refuse to walk the easy path, I will bind you by force. I will take you to Hidden Mist Gorge myself. I will awaken the Phoenix Seal with your blood, whether you wish it or not. The terrifying demonic pressure pressed down on Shen Yu's body, weighing on her bones like a 1,000-ton boulder. Her knees trembled slightly, and her breathing turned heavy. The gap between their strengths was insurmountable. Mironghan had already stepped into the top-tier realm of Jianghu masters, while she was still struggling between mortal and spiritual cultivation. Death was close at hand. Just as the black demonic tide was about to swallow her whole, a lazy, clear voice suddenly drifted over from the distant mountain path, carrying a faint smile and undisguised provocation, cutting through the heavy demonic pressure like a sharp blade. Dark Vein Sect's young master, killing people and bullying civilians in Imperial territory. Do you really think no one dares to stop you? Mironghan's expression darkened instantly. He turned his head sharply, gazing toward the source of the voice. Li Zioqi stood at the end of the winding mountain path, his black Imperial Guard uniform fluttering in the wind, his hands still tucked casually in his waist belt. His lazy smile was still on his lips, but his dark eyes were cold and sharp, locked firmly on Mironghan's demonic figure. The hidden Imperial Guards who had retreated earlier spread out silently behind him, forming a tight encirclement, their blade glints cold and gleaming in the sunlight. The three forces finally confronted each other in the Qingming Mountain woods. The last phoenix of the fallen clan, the demonic young master of the dark vein, and the unfathomable Imperial Guard hiding endless secrets. The quiet border mountains were completely torn open by the surging undercurrent. The grand storm of the great Qian dynasty had truly arrived. Since you refuse to walk the easy path, I will bind you by force. I will take you to Hidden Mist Gorge myself. I will awaken the Phoenix Seal with your blood, whether you wish it or not. The terrifying demonic pressure pressed down on Shen Yu's body, weighing on her bones like a 1,000-ton boulder. Her knees trembled slightly, and her breathing turned heavy. The gap between their strengths was insurmountable. Mironghan had already stepped into the top-tier realm of Jianghu masters, while she was still struggling between mortal and spiritual cultivation. Death was close at hand. Just as the black demonic tide was about to swallow her whole, a lazy, clear voice suddenly drifted over from the distant mountain path, carrying a faint smile and undisguised provocation, cutting through the heavy demonic pressure like a sharp blade. Dark Vein Sect's young master, killing people and bullying civilians in Imperial territory. Do you really think no one dares to stop you? Mirong Han's expression darkened instantly. He turned his head sharply, gazing toward the source of the voice. Li Zioqi stood at the end of the winding mountain path, his black Imperial Guard uniform fluttering in the wind, his hands still tucked casually in his waist belt. His lazy smile was still on his lips, but his dark eyes were cold and sharp, locked firmly on Mirong Han's demonic figure. The hidden Imperial Guards who had retreated earlier spread out silently behind him, forming a tight encirclement, their blade glints cold and gleaming in the sunlight. The three forces finally confronted each other in the Qingming Mountain woods. The last phoenix of the fallen clan, the demonic young master of the Dark Vein, and the unfathomable Imperial Guard hiding endless secrets. The quiet border mountains were completely torn open by the surging undercurrent. The grand storm of the Great Qian dynasty had truly arrived. Mirong Han's black demonic tide froze mid-swell, the raging oppressive momentum lingering in the air yet no longer advancing. He stared at Li Zioqi with unmasked hostility, his phoenix-shaped eyes cold and disdainful. An imperial dog dares to meddle in my business. His voice carried the arrogance of a Jianghu supreme powerhouse, utterly dismissive of the imperial authority that ordinary people feared above all else. For decades, the Dark Vein sect had lurked in the Jianghu, contending with orthodox sects and defying imperial suppression. He had never placed a mere Imperial Guard in his eyes. Li Zioqi chuckled softly, strolling forward unhurriedly, no fear of the rolling demonic aura tainting his uniform. He stopped beside Shen Yu, his casual posture forming an unspoken barrier shielding her from the crushing pressure. Imperial dog or not, I hold the court's military order to investigate Qingming's serial murders. All killings in this borderland fall under my jurisdiction. You slaughtered sect disciples openly, and now you attempt to assault an innocent civilian. Even the Dark Vein sect cannot ignore imperial law without a price. Innocent civilian Mirong Han sneered, his gaze sweeping down to the glowing phoenix birthmark on Shen Yu's wrist. This girl is the last remnant of the traitorous Shen clan, a fugitive the court has hunted for 7 years. Your so-called innocent civilian is a top-ranked imperial criminal. Are you blind, or are you deliberately covering for her? Shen Yu's body stiffened slightly. This was the crisis she had feared most. Mirong Han intended to expose her identity directly, pushing her into a deadly dilemma where both Jianghu killers and imperial forces would hunt her relentlessly. If Li Zioqi chose to arrest her on the spot, she would be trapped between two deadly foes with no way to escape. Li Xiaoqi's gaze flicked faintly over the phoenix birthmark, yet he showed no surprise, no intention of drawing his blade. He merely raised an eyebrow, his tone still lazy and unrushed. I only investigate current murders, not old clan cases closed 7 years ago. The Shen clan's treason verdict was based on imperial court documents, but no living witness or conclusive evidence remains. Until I confirm this girl is a criminal, she is merely a mountain herbalist under imperial protection. His words were casual, yet they carried unshakable stance. He was shielding her. Shen Yu lifted her eyes slightly, staring at the side of his face in disbelief. She had judged him dangerous and unreadable, yet at this critical moment, he was using imperial rules to block Murong Han's persecution. Murong Han's expression turned icy with fury. You insist on opposing me for a fugitive. I insist on upholding imperial authority in my territory. Li Xiaoqi's smile faded completely, and a sharp, suppressed martial aura burst forth from his body. It was not the violent, corrosive demonic energy of the dark vein, but a deep, restrained, soldier-like sword intent, thick and vast, capable of suppressing all evil arts in the world. The moment this aura erupted, the surrounding demonic mist was instantly pushed back, the oppressive cold dispersed without a trace. Murong Han's pupils shrank sharply. He had underestimated this ordinary-looking imperial guard. This level of sword intent was far beyond the scope of ordinary low-rank imperial guards. Even the capital's top martial generals could hardly match such profound cultivation. This man was hiding terrifying strength, enough to rival the core elders of the Dark Vein sect. You are no ordinary guard. Murong Han's voice turned low and dangerous, full of killing intent. Who are you? Li Xiaoqi did not answer. He only drew the long blade at his waist slowly. The black iron blade had no fancy carvings, no glowing spiritual light, yet when it unsheathed, it emitted a deep, resonant hum that shook the entire mountain forest. Someone who can kill you if you overstep. The atmosphere snapped taut to the breaking point. Black demonic auras surged wildly on Murong Han's side, twisting into countless sharp shadow blades hovering in the air, every blade aimed at Li Xiaoqi and Shen Yu. On the opposite side, Li Xiaoqi's straight sword intent stood like a towering mountain, steady and unshakable, suppressing all incoming evil. Shen Yu stood between the two terrifying auras, her mind racing rapidly. She knew this confrontation could not end well. If the two powerhouse cultivators fought with full force, the entire mountain forest would be flattened, and she would be caught in the crossfire with no chance of survival. More importantly, she could not let Muronghan be forced to retreat today. If he left unharmed, he would only lay more traps, kill more innocent people, and accelerate his plan to seize the Phoenix Seal. She could not let her clan's final legacy fall into the hands of this demonic villain. Shen Yu bent down swiftly, picking up her fallen short sword from the mossy ground. She brushed off the dirt, her fingers gripping the hilt firmly once again. The phoenix birthmark on her wrist burned hotter than ever, warm power flowing through her meridians, awakening the latent Chen clan bloodline power hidden in her body for 7 years. She stepped forward, standing side by side with Li Zioqi, her slender figure holding unyielding resolve. Muronghan, she said clearly, her voice cutting through the tense silence, your grudges are with me, not innocent Jianghu disciples, not this borderland. If you want the Phoenix Seal, come for me. Stop killing indiscriminately. Muronghan's cold gaze swept over both of them, a cruel smile returning to his lips. Fine. Since you two insist on dying together, I will fulfill your wish. In the next instant, countless black shadow blades roared forward, sweeping toward the two figures like a violent demonic storm. A earth-shaking battle broke out in the Qingming Mountains. Chapter 4, Dual Swords Against Demonic Shadow. The shadow blades tore through the air, leaving twisted black trails in their wake. The entire forest was enveloped in a dense demonic mist, the sunlight completely blocked out, turning the bright midday woods into a pitch-dark purgatory in the blink of an eye. Ordinary martial artists would be torn into mincemeat by such a dense, fierce attack. But Li Zioqi did not flinch. He lifted his long sword horizontally, his wrist turning gently. A wall of faint golden sword light bloomed instantly in front of them, simple and unadorned yet incredibly solid. All the incoming shadow blades crashed against the light wall, bursting into black smoke the moment they touched the golden barrier, unable to penetrate even an inch. The shock wave of the collision swept across the forest, sending fallen leaves and gravel flying in all directions. Shen Yu's eyes narrowed slightly in shock. She had guessed Li Zioqi was extraordinary, but she had never imagined his cultivation could reach such a terrifying level. His sword technique was upright, grand, and majestic, carrying the aura of imperial orthodoxy, perfectly restraining the insidious, corrosive demonic arts of the Dark Vein sect. Your sword technique, she muttered subconsciously. Li Zioqi glanced at her from the corner of his eye, his tone calm amid the raging battle. State secret. Don't ask. Before Shen Yu could respond, Muronghan's figure flickered again, vanishing into the demonic mist. His movement technique was incomparably swift, blending perfectly with the dark aura, making his position impossible to track. "Watch your back." Lee Zioki's voice rang out sharply. Shen Yu reacted instantly, twisting her body backward, her short sword slicing upward in a clean arc. A black demonic claw struck down from the empty air right behind her head, the sharp nails glowing with deadly cold light. Clang! The short sword blocked the claw strike head-on. The tremendous force sent Shen Yu sliding backward 3 steps, her palms numbed by the impact. Mirong Han reappeared 10 feet away, his white robe fluttering in the demonic wind, his eyes cold and playful. The Phoenix bloodline's reaction speed is indeed outstanding. But your cultivation is far too weak, Shen Yu. Without this Imperial Guard protecting you, you would have died 100 times over. He raised his right hand, and the scattered black smoke in the air converged rapidly in his palm, condensing into a long, pitch-black demonic sword. The sword body was twisted and strange, exuding a biting cold that eroded the surrounding air, carrying the power of countless trapped souls consumed by the dark vein technique. "Let me show you the true power of my dark vein art." Mirong Han gripped the demonic sword and charged forward. His sword moves were fierce and insidious, every strike targeting vital meridians, every slash carrying corrosive demonic energy that could erode spiritual power and damage blood veins. Lee Zioki stepped forward to meet the attack, his long sword flowing like running water. His sword moves were steady and rigorous, neither overly aggressive nor passive, diffusing every deadly demonic strike with precise, restrained force. Clang! 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 Continuous sharp collisions echoed through the mountains. Golden orthodox sword light and black demonic sword shadows intertwined and clashed, tearing the forest terrain apart. Tree trunks snapped, boulders cracked, and the once peaceful mountain woods were reduced to ruins in mere moments. Shen Yu did not stand idly by. She knew she could not match Mirong Han's strength head-on, but she possessed the Shen clan's unique righteous sword intent, the natural nemesis of dark vein demonic arts. She circulated the phoenix power in her bloodline, the red birthmark glowing brightly, pouring pure spiritual energy into her short sword. The silver blade bloomed with a faint red light, righteous and warm, dispelling the surrounding demonic mist wherever it passed. She circled around Mirong Han's flank, her movement light and agile, seizing every gap in his sword moves to launch precise, fatal stabs. She did not seek grand momentum, only efficient killing blows, targeting the weak points of his demonic technique. One man held the front, suppressing the enemy's overwhelming power. One woman flanked the rear, breaking his demonic defenses. The unlikely alliance between the fugitive Phoenix Orphan and the unfathomable Imperial Guard actually forced Muronghan into a passive defensive position. Muronghan's expression grew increasingly gloomy. He had underestimated the coordination of the two. Li Xiaoqi's orthodox sword intent restrained his demonic core, while Shen Yu's phoenix blood power continuously eroded his outer demonic aura. The longer the battle dragged on, the more his strength was consumed. Enough of this farce. Muronghan let out a low roar, and his body burst forth with a soaring black demonic aura dozens of times stronger than before. He pushed his cultivation to the limit, the demonic sword in his hand bursting into countless shadow replicas, covering the entire sky, sweeping toward Li Xiaoqi and Shen Yu in a desperate all-out attack. Li Xiaoqi's expression turned solemn. He lifted his long sword high above his head, gathering all his spiritual power into a single strike. Imperial Sword Technique Clear Sky Suppression. A dazzling golden sword light shot straight into the sky, tearing through the dark demonic mist, illuminating the entire mountain range. The majestic sword power pressed down from above, crushing all shadow replicas in an instant. The two supreme powers collided violently at the center of the forest. Boom! A deafening explosion erupted, and a powerful shockwave spread outward, flattening all surrounding vegetation. When the smoke and dust finally cleared, the forest was left in complete devastation. Muronghan stood in the center of the ruins, his white robe now stained with faint blood. His chest rose and fell slightly, his face pale, clearly suffering from severe internal injuries. He stared at the two people in front of him with unprecedented coldness and killing intent. Li Xiaoqi's breathing was also slightly unsteady, his sword tip lowered slightly, yet his stance remained unshakable. Shen Yu's forehead was covered in fine sweat, her body aching from the backlash of the bloodline power, but her grip on her sword never wavered. Muronghan knew he could not win today. With Li Xiaoqi's full strength and Shen Yu's phoenix blood restrained, continuing the battle would only leave him severely injured, or even trapped and captured. But he would not leave empty-handed. Shen Yu. He spoke slowly, his voice cold and hoarse, echoing across the ruined forest. You think you can escape your fate by hiding behind an Imperial Guard? The Phoenix Seal is your destiny, not your shelter. I will wait for you in Hidden Mist Gorge. In 3 days, I will awaken the ancient seal. Whether you come willingly or are dragged by force, you will be mine. And you, Imperial Guard. His gaze shifted to Li Xiaoqi, sharp with warning. Meddle in my affairs again, and I will drag your hidden secrets into the sunlight, letting the entire imperial court and Jianghu know what kind of person you truly are. After dropping the two sentences, Muronghan's figure turned into a wisp of black smoke, vanishing into the mountain mist in an instant, leaving only cold killing intent lingering in the air. The deadly crisis finally receded. The forest fell into a sparse, broken silence. Shen Yu sheathed her short sword, her body suddenly going weak at the knees. The overdrawn bloodline power and the continuous tension made her stagger slightly, nearly collapsing to the ground. A steady hand reached out instantly, catching her elbow firmly, supporting her swaying body. Li Xiaoqi's lazy voice sounded above her head, soft yet reassuring, different from the sharpness during the battle. You're hurt. Don't push yourself too hard, little herbalist. Chapter 5, Hidden Truths and Unspoken Deals. The warmth of Li Xiaoqi's palm seeped through the thin linen of her robe, cutting through the cold numbness that had settled deep in Shen Yu's bones after the brutal battle. She tensed instinctively, every muscle coiling with the habitual wariness of someone who had spent 7 years trusting no one. Yet she did not pull away. His touch was steady, gentle, and free of malice, nothing like the greedy, violent grasp of Muronghan, or the cold, ruthless cruelty of the world that had taken everything from her. Shen Yu lifted her head slowly, her dark eyes still glistening with the faint residual haze of overdrawn spiritual power. Sweat clung to her temples, and a faint streak of crimson blood trickled down from the corner of her lips, the aftermath of forcing her dormant phoenix bloodline to erupt in battle. Her gaze swept over Li Xiaoqi's face, tracing the lazy curve of his lips, the sharp line of his jaw, and the deep, unfathomable darkness hidden in his pupils. After the fierce clash with Muronghan, his disguise of an ordinary, laid-back imperial guard had completely crumbled. No low-ranking court soldier could stand evenly against the top young master of the Dark Vein sect. No ordinary guard wielded imperial sword intent pure enough to crush supreme demonic arts. You're not a simple border investigator, Shen Yu said softly, her voice hoarse from exhaustion and suppressed emotion. There was no accusation in her tone, only quiet certainty. 7 years of hiding and observing had sharpened her eyes to lies and pretense. Li Xiaoqi did not deny it. He released her elbow slowly, his movement casual and unhurried, as if her sharp observation was nothing more than a trivial comment on the weather, even after the battle ended. Including you. Shen Yu's breath faltered for a split second. He knew. He had known all along. From the very first moment they met on the misty mountain path, he had seen through her meek herbalist disguise, seen the hidden martial arts, the suppressed bloodline, the heavy hatred buried in her bones. Yet he had never exposed her, never arrested her, even when Muronghan had handed her identity to him on a silver platter. "Why cover for me?" she asked bluntly, no longer bothering with pretense. The broken forest ruins, the lingering demonic aura, the 3-day deadline Muronghan had left behind, there was no more room for shallow disguise. Li Zioqi turned his gaze toward the devastated woodland, toward the faint black mist still curling in the distant valley. The Imperial guards under his command had already dispersed silently, sweeping the perimeter for remaining Darkvein lurking killers, leaving only the two of them alone amid the wreckage. "The Shen clan's treason case is rotten from the root," he said, his tone dropping from lazy casualness to quiet gravity, a rare seriousness stripping away his usual frivolity. "I've studied the court archives for years. No witness testimonies, no physical evidence of collusion with foreign enemies, only a sudden imperial edict and a night of full clan extermination." He glanced back at her, his dark eyes sharp and truthful. "You are the only surviving witness of that night. And the Darkvein sect's sudden rampage in Qingming is not just a random Jianghu massacre. It's tied to the old court conspiracy that destroyed your clan." Shen Yu's fingers tightened around the hilt of her sheathed short sword, her heart pounding violently in her chest. For 7 years, she had thought her clan's destruction was solely Muronghan's revenge and the Darkvein's ambition. She had never guessed the Imperial Court's hidden conspiracy ran deeper than she'd imagined. "What do you know?" she pressed, her voice trembling slightly with suppressed urgency. "What is the court hiding?" "More than you can handle alone." Li Zioqi's tone was calm, yet carried an unshakable certainty. "Muronghan is not just after the Phoenix Seal to dominate the Jianghu. He's after the Seal's power to expose the Imperial Palace's darkest secret, the same secret that made your clan a sacrifice 7 years ago." A heavy silence fell between them. The mountain wind swept through the broken tree trunks, carrying the faint scent of blood and burnt wood, a bitter reminder of the bloodshed and conspiracy that had haunted her entire life. Shen Yu finally understood the full weight of Muronghan's threat. His hunt for her was never just about revenge or demonic cultivation. It was a gamble between the Darkvein sect and the corrupt Imperial Court, and she, the last phoenix of the Shen clan, was the core bargaining chip of the entire game. 3 days, she whispered, recalling the cold promise Muronghan had left before fleeing. "He will wait for me in Hidden Mist Gorge to awaken the Phoenix Seal with my blood. And you will go." Li Zioqi stated it as a fact, not a question. Shen Yu lifted her chin, her tired eyes blazing with unyielding resolve. "I have to. The Phoenix Seal is my clan's last heritage. It holds the truth of my clan's innocence. If I run, Muronghan will eventually force the seal open by other means, and all the people my clan died protecting will become sacrifices for his demonic tyranny. She paused, then looked straight into Lizioki's eyes, laying out her only choice plainly. I have no way out. Lizioki stared at her for a long moment, watching the quiet courage in her slender, wounded figure. Most people trapped in such a deadly conspiracy would crumble, flee, or beg for salvation. But she had carried 7 years of hatred and loneliness alone, never bending, never breaking. A faint, genuine smile tugged at his lips, softer and warmer than any of his previous lazy smirks. Then I'll go with you. Shen Yu's eyes widened slightly, shock flashing across her face. Why, this is my feud, my fate. It has nothing to do with you, or the imperial court you serve. On the contrary. Lizioki sheathed his long sword, the metallic hum fading into the mountain silence. It has everything to do with my mission. The Dark Vein sex chaos threatens imperial stability, and the palace conspiracy behind your clan's massacre is the root of decades of Jianghu turmoil. I don't just want to protect you, I want to uncover the truth. He extended a hand toward her, his gaze steady and sincere. A temporary alliance, little herbalist. For 3 days, we set aside our identities: fugitive and imperial guard, phoenix orphan, and court soldier. We fight Muronghan together, guard the phoenix seal, and dig up the truth buried in 7 years of blood and ash. After that, he added, his tone faintly ambiguous, we can settle our own debts. Shen Yu stared at his outstretched palm, clean and steady, a rare offer of trust in a world that had only given her betrayal and bloodshed. She knew the risks. Allying with an imperial guard meant tying her fate to the mysterious court forces he represented. It meant exposing her every secret to a man whose identity and purpose were still half hidden in shadow. But she also knew she could not defeat Muronghan alone. The gap in their strength was insurmountable. Without Lizioki's orthodox sword intent to restrain demonic arts, she would never survive the hidden Mistgorge confrontation, never uncover the truth of her clan's injustice. After a long pause, she lifted her hand and placed it gently in his. Her palm was cold, scraped, and stained with faint battle blood. His was warm, firm, and steady, anchoring her wavering resolve in the midst of endless chaos. Alliance, she agreed softly, her voice clear and unwavering. Lizioki's fingers closed gently around hers, sealing their unspoken pact. 3 days until the Gorge showdown. He glanced toward the mist-shrouded depths of the distant mountain range, where the hidden mist gorge lay hidden, waiting for the final storm. First, we heal your wounds. A wounded phoenix cannot fight a demonic tyrant. As they turned to leave the ruined forest, neither of them noticed a wisp of invisible black smoke lingering in the broken treetops, drifting silently after their retreating figures, carrying every word of their alliance straight to the ears of the watching demon hidden in the mist. 3 days of deadly countdown had officially begun. The battle for the Phoenix Seal, the truth of the Shen clan massacre, and the fates of the entire Great Qian dynasty all hung in the balance. Chapter 6: Cottage Mists and Lingering Suspicions. The mountain dusk fell fast, bleeding soft indigo over the broken pine ridges and smothering the last embers of the day's brutal conflict. The wind no longer carried the sharp tang of demonic smoke and blood. It had shifted, turning mild and earthy, brushing through new grass that pushed stubbornly through the cracked battlefield soil, life reclaiming ruin, quiet and unyielding. Li Xiaoqi led the way down the winding mountain path, his pace slow and unrushed, deliberately adjusted to match Shen Yu's weakened gait. The Imperial Guards under his command had vanished completely, leaving no trace of their encirclement, no footprints, no blade glint. They were shadows by trade, and shadows knew when to fade into the background. Shen Yu walked half a step behind him, her shoulders still tight with habitual vigilance. The faint blood at her lip had dried to a dark crust, and every step sent a dull throbbing up her calves, the aftershock of overdrawn phoenix blood lingering in her meridians like a slow-burning fever. She did not speak. Her mind replayed every word of their alliance, every hidden tone in Li Xiaoqi's voice, every unreadable flicker in his eyes. Trust was a luxury she had buried 7 years ago alongside her clan's bones. She could ally with him out of necessity, could stand back to back with him against Murong Han, but she would never lower her guard completely. "You're overthinking again." Li Xiaoqi's lazy voice cut through her silent turmoil, warm and effortless amid the mountain hush. He did not turn his head, yet he seemed to sense every shift of her tension, every silent doubt swirling in her chest. Shen Yu's gaze sharpened slightly. "Can you read minds too, Captain Li?" "No need for mind reading." He finally glanced over his shoulder, a faint, knowing smile tugging at his lips. "Your eyes give everything away. You're weighing me. Wondering if this alliance is another trap. Wondering if I'll hand you over to the palace the moment Murong Han is defeated." He spoke the truth plainly, no defense, no pretense. Shen Yu's jaw tightened, but she did not deny it. "You serve the imperial court. The same court that ordered my clan's execution. Our standings are enemies by birth. Standings change. Lizaoki's tone dropped, softening into quiet gravity. Loyalty to a corrupt throne is not loyalty. It's blindness. I serve the dynasty's people, not the greedy few who hide behind imperial edicts and frame treason cases. His words were simple, yet they carried a weight that settled deep in the twilight air. They rounded a bend in the path, and a small wooden cottage came into view, tucked away between misty bamboo groves and wild herb fields. It was Shen Yu's hidden dwelling, plain and unadorned, with a thatched roof, a crude wooden fence, and rows of neatly tended medicinal plants stretching across the small yard. It was the only home she had known in 7 years. The cottage was quiet, untouched by the day's battle, shielded by remote terrain and faint spiritual barriers she had set up years prior to ward off wild beasts and wandering Jianghu cultivators. Rest here. Lizaoki halted at the fence gate, his casual demeanor fading into quiet caution. My men will patrol the outer mountain perimeter. No dark vein assassin can slip through their surveillance. For the next 3 days, this cottage is the safest place in all of Qingming. Shen Yu pushed open the wooden gate, the faint creak of wood echoing softly in the dusk. She stepped into the yard, her gaze sweeping over her herb beds, her dry storage shelves, the familiar small details that had anchored her lonely years of hiding. You trust your men that much? She asked quietly. I trust my orders. Lizaoki followed her inside, his tall figure ducking slightly to clear the low wooden doorway. They answer only to me. Not the prefecture magistrate, not the capital ministers, not the Empress Dowager's hidden spies. A subtle pause hung in his words, a hidden layer he did not elaborate on. Shen Yu caught it instantly. More secrets. More hidden layers to the mysterious Imperial Guard, who was far more powerful and far more disconnected from the court than any border investigator had any right to be. She lit a small pine candle on the wooden table, warm golden light spilling across the cramped cottage, chasing away the twilight shadows. The flame flickered gently, casting soft, shifting shadows over their faces, half revealing, half hiding their unspoken thoughts. Without a word, Shen Yu crossed to her medicinal storage cabinet, pulling open wooden drawers one by one. She selected healing herbs one after another: cool spirit mint, blood replenishing Ganoderma, meridian soothing silver grass, her fingers moving with the practiced precision of someone who had tended her own wounds for 7 long years. Lizaoki leaned against the door frame, watching her silently. He watched the way her slender fingers crushed dried herbs into fine powder, the way her brow furrowed faintly at the dull pain in her body, the way her phoenix birthmark still glowed faintly beneath her sleeve, thrumming with dormant ancient power. She was fragile in frame, yet unbreakable in spirit, a phoenix forced to dwell in mortal dust, biding its time to rise again. You know Muronghan won't wait obediently for 3 days, Shen Yu said suddenly, breaking the candlelit silence. He won't. Li Zioqi pushed off the door frame, stepping closer to the table. He's already moving. Shen Yu lifted her head, her eyes sharp. What has he done? The entire Qingming Jianghu is stirring. Li Zioqi's tone turned serious, all casual frivolity gone. Word has spread of the Dark Vein's return. Rogue cultivators, minor sect disciples, bounty hunters, they're all flocking to the border mountains. Muronghan is spreading rumors. He claims the hidden Mist Gorge holds an immortal treasure capable of granting boundless power. He's turning every greedy cultivator in the region into his unwitting pawns. Shen Yu's expression darkened. It was a classic demonic tactic, chaos by proxy. Muronghan would not waste his own strength wearing them down. He would send endless waves of greedy, desperate cultivators to test their defenses, drain their strength, and leave them exhausted and vulnerable by the time the 3-day deadline arrived. He wants us weakened, she murmured. So when we step into the gorge, we have no strength left to fight him. Precisely. Li Zioqi nodded. He's patient. He's waited 7 years for your blood. He won't rush the final moment. He'll whittle us down. Shen Yu rolled up her left sleeve, exposing the throbbing crimson phoenix birthmark glowing faintly under candlelight. The ancient pattern swelled gently, responding to her focused wool, a power older than the great Qian dynasty stirring beneath her skin. The phoenix seal does not only awaken with blood, she said slowly, recalling the fragmented clan teachings her father had whispered to her as a child. It awakens with truth. My ancestors sealed it to protect a secret, not just power, but evidence. Evidence of the imperial court's centuries-old corruption, the same corruption that doomed my clan. She lifted her gaze, resolve blazing bright in her dark eyes. If Muronghan wants the seal for tyranny, I will master it first. I will unlock its true power before he can twist it into demonic art. Li Zioqi stared at her, a faint, genuine admiration flickering in his deep eyes. That's a dangerous gamble. Unlocking the seal prematurely could burn your meridians raw. It could even cost you your life. I have no other choice. Shen Yu's voice was steady, unflinching. I've spent 7 years running. Now I fight back. Before Li Zioqi could respond, a faint, sharp whistle cut through the mountain night, echoing from the outer forest perimeter a coded warning from his patrolling guards. Lizaoki's expression shifted instantly, sharp and alert. Trouble's already here. Outside the cottage, the distant mountain wind picked up, carrying faint, chaotic footsteps and the clink of drawn blades. The first wave of Murong hanspawns had arrived. The 3-day countdown was no longer just a distant deadline. The first battle of their final stand had already begun. Chapter 7, Night Ambush and Phoenix Flare. The mountain night snapped taut with tension. The soft rustle of bamboo and crickets' chirps vanished entirely, drowned out by the heavy trample of dozens of footsteps crunching over fallen leaves and rocky soil. Blades hissed free of their sheaths one after another, cold and hungry, cutting through the quiet dusk. Shen Yu blew out the pine candle in one sharp breath. Warm golden light died in an instant, plunging the cottage into thick, velvety night shadow. Only the faint silver glow of the rising moon seeped through the wooden window slits, casting thin streaks across their tense faces. "How many?" she asked, voice lowered to a breathy whisper, no trace of her earlier exhaustion remaining. Lizaoki stepped silently to the cottage doorway, his lazy demeanor completely stripped away. His dark eyes glinted like polished blade steel in the moonlight, sharp and calculating as he scanned the surrounding woodland. 27 cultivators, he replied swiftly, his tone crisp and precise, honed from years of battlefield surveillance. Low to mid-tier Jianghe rogues, no core dark vein disciples. Just greedy scavengers lured by Murong Han's treasure rumor. Cannon fodder. Shen Yu's fingers brushed the hilt of her short sword at her waist, her muscles coiling with restrained power. Sent to drain us. Exactly. Lizaoki drew his black iron longsword without a sound. No grand golden aura flared, no intimidating hum shook the air. He held his power tightly contained, biding his strike. They want us to waste meridional energy on trivial fights. Let's not give them the satisfaction. Before the last word faded, the first wave of cultivators burst through the bamboo thicket surrounding the cottage yard. They were a ragged, ferocious crowd, rogues in tattered robes, bounty hunters clad in hardened leather, minor sect disciples with bloodied blade scars crisscrossing their arms. Greed blazed in every pair of eyes, overriding all caution. They cared nothing for imperial authority, nothing for hidden dangers, nothing for the lives of two strangers. All they saw was the promise of legendary immortal treasure hidden in hidden mist gorge, a chance to climb the Jianghe ranks overnight. The treasure bearer is hiding here. Someone roared. Kill them both, seize the gorge map and the ancient seal. Blades flashed silver in the moonlight. Dozens of sword strikes and saber slashes crashed toward the wooden fence, hacking and slashing without mercy. The crude wooden barrier splintered instantly, broken planks flying outward as the mob surged into the small yard. Shen Yu moved first. She did not charge blindly. Light as mist, she darted sideways across the cottage porch, her short sword unsheathed in a blurring silver flash. The phoenix birthmark on her wrist glowed faintly, pouring pure, righteous spiritual energy into her blade, turning its edge warm and radiant, a natural bane to the tainted, greedy martial energy of the rogue cultivators. Her strikes were clean, precise, and merciless. She dodged a wild saber swing by a hair's breadth, her body twisting like a fleeting phoenix shadow, then drove her short sword forward in a sharp, stabbing thrust. The blade pierced straight through the rogue's shoulder meridian, disabling his martial flow in a single blow. A pained howl split the night air. Before the man could collapse, Shen Yu had already spun away, her feet barely touching the ground, darting toward the next incoming attacker. She did not kill recklessly, she targeted meridians, crippling each foe with minimal movement, conserving her strength for the true battle ahead. Li Zioqi watched her fighting style from the doorway, a flicker of quiet admiration crossing his sharp eyes. She fought not with the reckless fury of a vengeful orphan, but with the disciplined, precise technique of a clan-bred swordsman. Every angle, every feint, every calculated strike bore the legacy of the Shen clan's 300 years of righteous swordsmanship. Beneath the fragile herbalist exterior lay a warrior forged in fire and blood. "Leave the front line to me," he said quietly, stepping forward to block the bulk of the incoming mob. "Preserve your phoenix power. Muronghan is saving his worst for the gorge." His long sword finally flared with restrained golden sword intent. Unlike the explosive, sky-shaking strike he'd used against Muronghan, this release was controlled, compact, and devastatingly efficient. A thin, sharp barrier of orthodox spiritual energy spread across the entire yard, knocking 3 charging rogues backward mid-leap, their blades flying from their grip. Li Zioqi's sword moved like flowing water, steady and unbreakable. He parried heavy broadsword strikes, deflected fast dagger jabs, and neutralized every chaotic attack the mob threw at him, never wasting a single ounce of power. The two fought in perfect, unspoken sync. Li Zioqi held the center, suppressing the mob's main force, anchoring the battlefield and blocking all heavy assaults. Shen Yu flanked the edges, cutting down stragglers, disabling sneak attackers, and sealing off every escape and ambush point. They had never trained together, never fought side by side before this night, Yet their coordination was flawless, as if their fighting instincts had been carved to complement one another. Within minutes, half the rogue cultivators lay crippled or disoriented on the cottage yard ground, their arrogant shouts replaced with pained groans and panicked gasps. The remaining attackers began to waver, greed fading into terror as they realized they were not fighting two ordinary fugitives, they were fighting two top-tier martial artists far beyond their own skill level. Retreat! Someone shouted in panic. These two are monsters, we've been tricked. The mob scattered instantly, turning to flee into the dark bamboo forest, desperate to escape the fatal battlefield they'd rushed into blindly. Shen Yu raised her sword, ready to give chase and eliminate the threat entirely. Let them go. Li Xiaoqi's hand shot out, gently catching her wrist to halt her movement. She turned to him, eyes sharp with confusion beneath the moonlight. They'll spread more rumors. They'll bring more people to hunt us down. That's exactly of sweat and blood. The immediate ambush was over, but the tension in the air did not fade. The real spies are still watching. Shen Yu's gaze swept coldly over the shadowed treetops surrounding the cottage, her senses sharp enough to detect the faint, hidden demonic aura lingering in the distant darkness. Murong Han's men didn't leave with the mob. Li Xiaoqi's smile faded completely. He's watching every move we make. He lifted his sword, sheathing it with a crisp, resolute clang. He wants to see our strength, our weaknesses, our alliance's flaws. He's studying us before the Gorge showdown. Shen Yu lifted her left wrist, staring at the phoenix birthmark glowing brighter than before, its crimson pulse steady and urgent. The dormant ancient power in her bloodline was fully awake now, stirred by the night's battle, thrumming with a quiet power she could no longer ignore. Then we'll give him a show. Her voice was low, firm, and unyielding, carrying the resolve of a phoenix rising from 7 years of ash and ruin. Tonight, we don't hide. Tonight, we awaken the first layer of the phoenix seal. Li Xiaoqi's gaze sharpened, a flicker of solemn worry crossing his features. Shen Yu, I warned you this will burn your meridians. It's a forced awakening, not a natural one. I have no other choice. She stepped back into the cottage, her posture straight and unshakable. If I enter Hidden Mist Gorge tomorrow with half-awakened power, Murong Han will devour my bloodline and twist the seal's truth into his demonic scripture. I'd rather burn my own meridians than let my clan's last legacy become his weapon. She paused, then glanced back at him, her dark eyes clear and steady. Will you stand guard for me? Li Xiaoqi stared at her for a long, silent moment, watching the unbreakable courage in her slender frame. After a beat, he nodded firmly. I'll hold off every assassin, every spy, every shadow that dares to come near. You focus on awakening the seal. As Shen Yu knelt in the center of the cottage floor, settling into a quiet cultivation stance, Li Zioqi turned to face the dark, endless mountain forest. He stood alone in the broken yard, sword in hand, his orthodox sword intent spreading silently across the entire perimeter, forming an invisible, impenetrable barrier. The night grew darker. Somewhere deep in the mist-shrouded mountains, Muronghan stood atop a jagged cliff, his white robe billowing in the cold night wind. His phoenix eyes locked steadily on the faint red glow rising from the distant cottage, a cold, triumphant smile tugging at his lips. The phoenix was no longer hiding. After 7 years of dormant silence, the ancient bloodline was finally stirring to life, burning bright enough for him to taste its power on the mountain wind. Every throb of her seal, every surge of her awakened power was a step closer to the grand reckoning he had spent half his life orchestrating. Burn brighter, little phoenix, he murmured softly, his voice drifting thin across the empty mountain valleys. Every scar you earn tonight will make your blood more pure, more perfect, more worthy of awakening the seal. Behind him, 3 figures cloaked in solid black knelt silently on the rocky cliff, their auras suppressed to near invisibility. Core disciples of the Dark Vein sect, his most loyal and ruthless subordinates, far deadlier than the greedy rogues sent to ambush the cottage. Master, one of them whispered, head bowed, the Imperial Guard's barrier is unbreakable by ordinary means. We cannot infiltrate the cottage while he stands watch. Muronghan's smile never faded, cold and calculating beneath the moonlight. I do not need you to break in. He tore his gaze from the distant crimson glow, his eyes glinting with icy purpose. Let her awaken the seal. Let her exhaust her meridians, burn her blood, and drain every ounce of her strength tonight. When the dawn breaks, she will be weak, vulnerable. And that is when we strike. A faint wisp of black demonic aura curled around his fingertips, twisting into a tiny, invisible shadow insect that fluttered silently toward the cottage, a living tracker that would cling to the residual phoenix energy and never lose its target. Watch. Wait. And be ready. Chapter 8, Night-Long Guard and Phoenix Awakening. Back at the mountain cottage, the night had sunk into utter stillness. The broken wooden fence and trampled yard bore the scars of the brief ambush, but no sound lingered. The fleeing rogues had vanished into the wilderness, the hidden spies dared not move an inch, and the entire mountain forest held its breath, centered on the faint, pulsing red light seeping through the cottage wooden planks. Inside the room, Shen Yu knelt upright on the cold wooden floor, her knees settled firmly into a meditative stance. She had discarded her outer robe, leaving only a thin inner linen garment clinging to her frame. Her left wrist was fully exposed, the crimson phoenix birthmark no longer a faint pattern beneath skin but a blazing, vivid totem, glowing like smoldering embers, spreading faint red veins of light up her forearm, winding toward her heart. Her eyes were closed, her brows tightly furrowed. The moment she channeled her spiritual power to force the seal's first layer open, a searing, scorching pain erupted through every meridian in her body. It was not the sharp pain of a blade wound, but a slow, burning erosion, as if molten fire coursed through her blood vessels, scouring away 7 years of suppressed restraint. Tears of physical pain pricked the corners of her eyes, but she did not flinch, did not tremble, did not break her concentration for even a heartbeat. She had endured 7 years of cold nights, empty meals, endless hiding, and suffocating fear. This burning agony was nothing compared to the sight of her clan burning alive, nothing compared to the weight of her soul survival. Channel after channel of pure phoenix power surged forth from her dormant bloodline. The red glow in the cottage grew brighter and brighter, casting flickering scarlet shadows across the wooden walls, illuminating every crack and grain of the aged wood. Faint ancient runes, long lost to time, surfaced fleetingly on her skin, ancient characters of the Shen clan's heavenly phoenix scripture, glowing briefly before sinking back into her flesh. Outside the door, Li Zioqi stood motionless in the center of the ruined yard. The night wind swept past his black uniform, lifting the hem of his robes, but his stance never shifted. His eyes were sharp and alert, scanning every shadow, every treetop, every hidden crevice in the surrounding mountains. His sword remained half drawn at his waist, the golden orthodox sword intent spreading endlessly outward, forming an invisible dome that enveloped the entire cottage. No demonic aura, no hidden blade, no mortal step could cross this barrier. He could feel every tremor of pain rippling from the cottage, could sense her spiritual power surging violently, then faltering, then burning hotter still. He could taste the faint scent of scorched meridians drifting through the wooden cracks, the bitter, sharp scent of a cultivator forcing their bloodline beyond its limits. A faint frown tugged at his usually lazy brows. He had seen countless cultivators chase forbidden power, countless warriors burn their lives for strength and vengeance. But none had endured with such quiet, stubborn resilience as Shen Yu. She did not scream. She did not gasp. She did not seek comfort or relief. She simply endured. For hours, the night stretched on in unbroken silence. The moon drifted slowly across the indigo sky, casting shifting silver light over the mountain ridges. The distant forest rustled occasionally, but no enemy dared approach. Muronghan's core disciples lurked in the far shadows, biding their time, waiting for the awakening to end, waiting for her strength to crumble. Lizaoki did not rest. He did not shift his stance, did not blink for long stretches, did not relax his sword intent for a single moment. His entire focus was split two ways, watching the surrounding wilderness for hidden assassins, and silently monitoring the fluctuating spiritual energy inside the cottage. He could feel her power peaking, then plummeting, rising again through sheer willpower alone. Toward the midnight hour, a sudden violent tremor shook the cottage. The red glow flared to a blinding brightness, flooding every corner of the small room, then shrank inward in an instant, sinking completely into Shen Yu's body. The world fell dim once more. The phoenix light vanished. Inside the room, Shen Yu's body finally trembled violently. A thin stream of crimson blood slipped from the corner of her mouth, dripping down her chin and onto her pale collarbone. Every muscle in her body ached with overexertion, her meridians scorched and raw, her spiritual power drained to the brink of collapse. But her eyes fluttered open. The dark depths of her pupils were no longer ordinary. A faint, fleeting scarlet phoenix flame flickered in her irises, ancient and noble, carrying the accumulated power of the Shen clan's thousand-year bloodline. The haze of weakness and suppression that had clung to her for 7 years was completely gone. The first layer of the Phoenix seal was fully awakened. She lifted her trembling left wrist. The birthmark no longer pulsed wildly. It lay calm and brilliant beneath her skin, a settled, powerful core of ancient energy, steady and unshakable. She could feel it clearly now, the dormant power winding through her veins, the hidden fragments of her ancestors' memories, and most importantly, the faint, distant connection linking her straight to the heart of hidden Mist Gorge. She could feel the seal. She could feel the truth. A soft, exhausted breath slipped from her lips, the first relaxed breath she had taken in 7 years. The wooden door creaked open gently. Lizaoki stepped inside, his footsteps light and unhurried, his vigilant aura fading into quiet tenderness. The golden sword barrier outside dissipated silently, his long sword fully sheathed once more. His gaze fell instantly on her blood-stained chin, her pale face, her trembling shoulders, and the faint phoenix flame still lingering in her eyes. "You did it," he said softly, his voice low enough not to startle her. Shen Yu lifted her head, her vision slightly blurred from exhaustion, but her gaze clear and determined. "I did." The first layer is unsealed. I can resist Murong Han's demonic erosion now. Lee Zioki walked to her side, bending down to offer his hand, his movement slow and gentle, no trace of haste or suspicion. But halfway there, he paused. His sharp eyes caught a faint, nearly invisible black speck clinging to the back of her sleeve, a tiny shadow insect, its body pulsing with faint dark vein aura, a tracker planted to follow their every move. His expression turned cold in an instant. Murong Han has marked you. Shen Yu's eyes sharpened instantly, all exhaustion fading into alertness. A tracker. A shadow trace. Lee Zioki's fingertip flicked out with precise speed, brushing lightly against the black speck. A wisp of golden sword light burned the insect to ash in a split second, erasing the tracking mark completely. It cannot relay words, but it records your aura, your position, and the extent of your awakened power. He knows exactly how strong you are now. Shen Yu slowly stood, her legs still weak but her posture firm. She brushed the dust from her robes, her gaze turning toward the distant, mist-shrouded peaks of hidden Mist Gorge, visible faintly through the cottage window. Let him know. Her voice was quiet, yet unyielding, edged with the newfound power of the awakened phoenix. Let him know the phoenix is no longer cowering in the dirt. Tomorrow, we march into the gorge. Tomorrow, we end this 7-year game. Outside the cottage, the first pale streak of dawn spilled over the mountain ridges, piercing the endless night. The 3-day countdown was down to its final day. The final gorge showdown was imminent. Chapter 9, Misty Gorge Bound and Final Oath. Dawn spilled over the rolling Qingming mountain ranges in thin, pale streaks, burning away the inky night mist and tinting the pine canopy with a faint golden hue. The mountain air was crisp and cold, washed clean by the night's wind and battle, yet it carried a suffocating sense of finality. Every breath marked the end of 7 years of hiding, and the start of the long-awaited reckoning. Shen Yu stood on the cottage porch, the morning breeze brushing loose strands of black hair across her pale forehead. The exhaustion from forcing the phoenix seal's awakening still lingered deep in her bones, a dull, constant throb in her meridians, but her posture was straight and unbowed. The fragile weariness that had clung to her as a mountain herbalist was gone entirely, replaced by the quiet, noble poise of a revived phoenix. Her left wrist rested naturally at her side, the crimson phoenix birthmark glowing faintly beneath her sleeve, steady and restrained. No longer a dormant, suppressed trace of bloodline, it was a living power core, thrumming in sync with her heartbeat, linking her irrevocably to the hidden Mist Gorge and the ancient secrets buried within. Lee Zioki stepped out of the cottage behind her, his black guard uniform neat and unblemished once more. The blood and dust of last night's ambush had been wiped clean, his sword sheathed firmly at his waist, his lazy half-smile returned to his lips. Yet his dark eyes held no frivolity, only sharp, focused vigilance, locked on the swirling thick mist that veiled the distant gorge. "Your meridians are still scorched," he said quietly, his tone carrying unspoken concern. "You could rest a little longer. The gorge's mist only fully thickens at midday. We still have time." Shen Yu shook her head slightly, her gaze fixed on the fog-shrouded mountain depths. "Every moment we delay gives Muronghan time to lay more traps. He knows my current strength, he knows I've burned my blood to awaken the seal. He'll have prepared every deadly scheme possible for our arrival." She turned to face him, her dark eyes clear and resolute in the morning light. "I cannot wait another minute." Li Zioqi fell silent for a moment, then nodded in acquiescence. He knew her stubbornness was not recklessness, but the weight of 7 years of grievance and survival. No amount of physical pain could hold her back from the truth her clan had died guarding. He lifted a hand and gave a low, sharp whistle. In an instant, 4 shadowy figures emerged silently from the surrounding bamboo forest, kneeling respectfully in the overgrown yard. These were his core elite guards, far more skilled than the ordinary patrol soldiers, their auras suppressed to near invisibility, their faces cold and disciplined. "Captain," the leading guard murmured, head bowed. "Secure the entire mountain perimeter." Li Zioqi's tone turned crisp and authoritative, every trace of casualness vanishing. "Block all secondary paths leading to Hidden Mist Gorge. Disperse any wandering cultivators, detain all dark vein stragglers. No one interferes with the gorge showdown today." "Understood." The 4 guards rose in unison and vanished back into the forest, their movements silent as drifting mist, leaving no trace of their presence. The entire mountain range was now under strict imperial surveillance, a solid barrier blocking all external chaos from disrupting their final confrontation. Shen Yu watched the guards disappear, a faint flicker of curiosity crossing her eyes. "Your authority stretches far beyond a border investigation, Captain. Who exactly are you, Li Zioqi?" It was the second time she had asked this question, no longer out of simple suspicion, but out of necessity. They were walking side by side into a life-or-death battle, bound by a temporary alliance. She needed to know the truth of the man fighting beside her. Li Zioqi glanced at her, the morning light softening the sharp lines of his jaw. He did not evade the question this time, nor did he offer full transparency, only a half-truth, wrapped in quiet gravity. I am someone who has spent half his life digging into the Shen clan's case. He paused, his gaze drifting to the distant gorge. My family was also implicated in the imperial court's purges 7 years ago. Not massacred, but erased, titles revoked, reputations ruined, exiled to the borderlands. We were minor pawns in the same conspiracy that destroyed your clan. Shen Yu's breath faltered slightly, shock flashing across her face. She had never imagined the untouchable Imperial Guard shared the same ties to the 7-year-old tragedy. I joined the Imperial Guards voluntarily, Li Zioqi continued, his voice low and calm. Climbing rank after rank, hiding my true intentions, bearing the title of Imperial Dog for years, all to wait for a chance to uncover the truth. To pull down the corrupt faction that manipulates the court and the Jianghe from the shadows. He turned back to her, his dark eyes steady and sincere. Our enmity with the imperial court is not opposite, Shen Yu. It overlaps. That is why my alliance with you is no temporary deal. It is a shared vengeance. A heavy, quiet understanding settled between them. For 7 years, she had believed she was alone in her hatred, alone in her pursuit of the truth. But this man had been fighting the same shadowy conspiracy, enduring his own suffering and disguise, waiting for the same day of reckoning. The gap between fugitive and Imperial Guard narrowed in that instant. "Thank you," she whispered softly, the words barely audible in the mountain wind. It was the first time she had uttered gratitude to a stranger in 7 long years. Li Zioqi smiled faintly, light and genuine. "Savior, thanks for after we survive the gorge. After we clear your clan's name. After we burn down all the lies that have haunted us for 7 years. He turned toward the winding mountain path leading deep into the mist, his sword hanging steady at his waist. "Let's go." Shen Yu nodded, gripping the hilt of her grandfather's short sword firmly. She slung her worn herb basket over her shoulder one last time, a final farewell to her 7 years of ordinary herbalist life. From this moment on, she was no longer a hiding fugitive. She was the last phoenix of the Shen clan, returning to claim her heritage and avenge her kin. The two figures stepped onto the misty path side by side, one clad in black imperial uniform with righteous sword intent hidden in his bones, one bearing the remnant fire of a phoenix clan long thought extinct. The deeper they walked into the mountains, the thicker the mist grew. The bright morning sunlight faded little by little, swallowed by the dense, white spiritual fog that enveloped the entire valley. The sound of birds and wind vanished, replaced by a dead, oppressive silence. The air turned icy cold, carrying faint wispy traces of demonic aura intertwined with ancient phoenix energy, the unique mixed breath of Hidden Mist Gorge. The gorge lived up to its forbidden reputation. No mortal could navigate its layered mist. No ordinary cultivator could resist the chaotic spiritual tides that twisted and warped all senses. It was a natural barrier, a sacred burial ground for the Shen clan's secrets, and a deadly trap for all intruders. The mist distorts spiritual perception, Li Zioqi warned softly, walking half a step ahead to shield her from the surging chaotic energy. Ordinary demonic arts and orthodox sword intent will be weakened here. Only your phoenix bloodline can resonate with the gorgeous core. Shen Yu hummed in response, her phoenix birthmark glowing faintly, sending steady warm waves of energy through her body. The chaotic mist that would disorient and cripple other cultivators felt familiar to her, like the faint, gentle warmth of her father's teachings, like the residual aura of her clan's ancestors. "It recognizes me," she said quietly. "The gorge is guarding the seal, just as my ancestors did. It will not harm the last of the Shen bloodline." But the same was not true for their enemies. As they crossed the final mountain ridge and stepped fully into the bounds of Hidden Mist Gorge, a cold, mocking voice drifted out from the endless white mist, clear and unobstructed, cutting through the dead silence. "After 7 years of waiting, the little phoenix finally flies home." Murong Han's voice carried no anger, no urgency, only calm, triumphant certainty, as if he had been standing here waiting for their arrival since the very beginning. The mist ahead began to churn violently, swirling into a massive vortex that split open the thick white fog. A lone figure stood at the center of the gorge's empty basin, his snow-white robe fluttering in the cold spiritual wind, his long black hair untethered, his phoenix-shaped eyes cold and flawless. He had no subordinates beside him, no demonic guards, no hidden traps in sight. He awaited them alone. "You came earlier than I expected," Murong Han said, his gaze sweeping slowly over Shen Yu, lingering on the faint phoenix flame in her pupils. "You burned your meridians to awaken the first seal layer overnight. Foolish, yet admirable. Your clan's stubbornness is truly ingrained in your blood." Shen Yu stepped forward, her voice cold and unyielding. "Murong Han, and your schemes. The 7-year game ends today." And Murong Han laughed softly, the sound echoing hollowly across the empty gorge basin. "This is not the end, Shen Yu. This is the beginning. The beginning of the true Phoenix Seal awakening, the beginning of a new world I will forge from the ashes of the old." He lifted his right hand, and the entire gorge's mist trembled violently. Countless black demonic runes surfaced beneath the white fog, spreading across the ground, winding up the gorgeous stone walls, forming a massive ancient formation that enveloped the entire basin. Demonic energy and ancient gorge spiritual power intertwined, creating a terrifying field that suppressed all external cultivation. I have laid the heaven-devouring demon formation overnight, Muronghan said calmly. Inside this gorge, your phoenix power cannot grow stronger, and his imperial sword intent cannot break free. We fight on equal ground. Li Xiaoqi's expression turned solemn. He had sensed the formation the moment they stepped into the gorge, its power far more profound and deadly than any ordinary dark vein array. Muronghan had prepared meticulously, leaving no room for error. You've sacrificed half your core demonic power to set this formation, Li Xiaoqi said sharply. You're desperate to finish this today. I've waited 7 years. Muronghan's eyes turned pitch black, thick killing intent surging forth. I have wasted enough time. Today, I will obtain the Phoenix Seal, refine the heavenly scripture, and overturn the entire Great Qian dynasty. He shifted his gaze back to Shen Yu, his tone dropping to a low, bewitching whisper. Last chance, little Phoenix. Abandon your alliance with this Imperial Guard. Join me. Merge your pure Phoenix blood with my demonic core. We will transcend both good and evil, rewrite the fate of this realm. Shen Yu did not hesitate for a single heartbeat. She drew her short sword in a blazing flash of silver, the phoenix birthmark on her wrist erupting with brilliant crimson light, righteous clan power surging through every inch of her body. I would burn my bloodline to ash before I walk the same path as a butcher who massacred my clan. Li Xiaoqi drew his long sword at the same time, golden orthodox sword intent bursting forth to counter the endless black demonic mist, forming a steady barrier beside Shen Yu. The two stood side by side once more, their auras intertwined, righteous and unyielding against the overwhelming demonic pressure. Muronghan's smile faded completely. So be it. Today, I will baptize the Phoenix Seal with your blood and his corpse. The wind howled through the hidden mist gorge, the white mist and black demonic aura colliding violently, tearing the sky and earth apart. The final showdown for the Phoenix Seal, for the truth of the Shen clan massacre, and for the fate of the entire Great Qian dynasty had finally erupted. Chapter 9, Misty Gorge Bound and Final Oath. Dawn spilled over the rolling Qingming mountain ranges in thin, pale streaks, burning away the inky night mist and tinting the pine canopy with a faint golden hue. The mountain air was crisp and cold, washed clean by the night's wind and battle, yet it carried a suffocating sense of finality. Every breath marked the end of 7 years of hiding, and the start of the long-awaited reckoning. Shen Yu stood on the cottage porch, the morning breeze brushing loose strands of black hair across her pale forehead. The exhaustion from forcing the phoenix seal's awakening still lingered deep in her bones, a dull, constant throb in her meridians, but her posture was straight and unbowed. The fragile weariness that had clung to her as a mountain herbalist was gone entirely, replaced by the quiet, noble poise of a revived phoenix. Her left wrist rested naturally at her side, the crimson phoenix birthmark glowing faintly beneath her sleeve, steady and restrained. No longer a dormant, suppressed trace of bloodline, it was a living power core, thrumming in sync with her heartbeat, linking her irrevocably to the hidden mist gorge and the ancient secrets buried within. Li Zioqi stepped out of the cottage behind her, his black guard uniform neat and unblemished once more. The blood and dust of last night's ambush had been wiped clean, his sword sheathed firmly at his waist, his lazy half-smile returned to his lips. Yet his dark eyes held no frivolity, only sharp, focused vigilance, locked on the swirling thick mist that veiled the distant gorge. "Your meridians are still scorched," he said quietly, his tone carrying unspoken concern. "You could rest a little longer. The gorge's mist only fully thickens at midday. We still have time." Shen Yu shook her head slightly, her gaze fixed on the fog-shrouded mountain depths. "Every moment we delay gives Muronghan time to lay more traps. He knows my current strength, he knows I've burned my blood to awaken the seal. He'll have prepared every deadly scheme possible for our arrival." She turned to face him, her dark eyes clear and resolute in the morning light. "I cannot wait another minute." Li Zioqi fell silent for a moment, then nodded in acquiescence. He knew her stubbornness was not recklessness, but the weight of 7 years of grievance and survival. No amount of physical pain could hold her back from the truth her clan had died guarding. He lifted a hand and gave a low, sharp whistle. In an instant, 4 shadowy figures emerged silently from the surrounding bamboo forest, kneeling respectfully in the overgrown yard. These were his core elite guards, far more skilled than the ordinary patrol soldiers, their auras suppressed to near invisibility, their faces cold and disciplined. "Captain," the leading guard murmured, head bowed. "Secure the entire mountain perimeter." Li Zioqi's tone turned crisp and authoritative, every trace of casualness vanishing. "Block all secondary paths leading to Hidden Mist Gorge. Disperse any wandering cultivators, detain all dark vein stragglers. No one interferes with the gorge showdown today." "Understood." The 4 guards rose in unison and vanished back into the forest, their movements silent as drifting mist, leaving no trace of their presence. The entire mountain range was now under strict imperial surveillance, a solid barrier blocking all external chaos from disrupting their final confrontation. Shen Yu watched the guards disappear, a faint flicker of curiosity crossing her eyes. Your authority stretches far beyond a border investigation, Captain. Who exactly are you, Li Zioqi? It was the second time she had asked this question, no longer out of simple suspicion, but out of necessity. They were walking side by side into a life-or-death battle, bound by a temporary alliance. She needed to know the truth of the man fighting beside her. Li Zioqi glanced at her, the morning light softening the sharp lines of his jaw. He did not evade the question this time, nor did he offer full transparency, only a half-truth, wrapped in quiet gravity. I am someone who has spent half his life digging into the Shen clan's case. He paused, his gaze drifting to the distant gorge. My family was also implicated in the imperial court's purges 7 years ago. Not massacred, but erased, titles revoked, reputations ruined, exiled to the borderlands. We were minor pawns in the same conspiracy that destroyed your clan. Shen Yu's breath faltered slightly, shock flashing across her face. She had never imagined the untouchable Imperial Guard shared the same ties to the 7-year-old tragedy. I joined the Imperial Guards voluntarily, Li Zioqi continued, his voice low and calm. Climbing rank after rank, hiding my true intentions, bearing the title of Imperial Dog for years, all to wait for a chance to uncover the truth. To pull down the corrupt faction that manipulates the court and the Jianghe from the shadows. He turned back to her, his dark eyes steady and sincere. Our enmity with the imperial court is not opposite, Shen Yu. It overlaps. That is why my alliance with you is no temporary deal. It is a shared vengeance. A heavy, quiet understanding settled between them. For 7 years, she had believed she was alone in her hatred, alone in her pursuit of the truth. But this man had been fighting the same shadowy conspiracy, enduring his own suffering and disguise, waiting for the same day of reckoning. The gap between fugitive and Imperial Guard narrowed in that instant. Thank you, she whispered softly, the words barely audible in the mountain wind. It was the first time she had uttered gratitude to a stranger in 7 long years. Li Zioqi smiled faintly, light and genuine. Savior, thanks for after we survive the gorge. After we clear your clan's name. After we burn down all the lies that have haunted us for 7 years. He turned toward the winding mountain path leading deep into the mist, his sword hanging steady at his waist. Let's go. Shen Yu nodded, gripping the hilt of her grandfather's short sword firmly. She slung her worn herb basket over her shoulder one last time, a final farewell to her 7 years of ordinary herbalist life. From this moment on, she was no longer a hiding fugitive. She was the last phoenix of the Shen clan, returning to claim her heritage and avenge her kin. The two figures stepped onto the misty path side by side, one clad in black imperial uniform with righteous sword intent hidden in his bones, one bearing the remnant fire of a phoenix clan long thought extinct. The deeper they walked into the mountains, the thicker the mist grew. The bright morning sunlight faded little by little, swallowed by the dense, white spiritual fog that enveloped the entire valley. The sound of birds and wind vanished, replaced by a dead, oppressive silence. The air turned icy cold, carrying faint wispy traces of demonic aura intertwined with ancient phoenix energy, the unique mixed breath of hidden mist gorge. The gorge lived up to its forbidden reputation. No mortal could navigate its layered mist, no ordinary cultivator could resist the chaotic spiritual tides that twisted and warped all senses. It was a natural barrier, a sacred burial ground for the Shen clan's secrets, and a deadly trap for all intruders. The mist distorts spiritual perception, Li Zioqi warned softly, walking half a step ahead to shield her from the surging chaotic energy. Ordinary demonic arts and orthodox sword intent will be weakened here. Only your phoenix bloodline can resonate with the gorgeous core. Shen Yu hummed in response, her phoenix birthmark glowing faintly, sending steady warm waves of energy through her body. The chaotic mist that would disorient and cripple other cultivators felt familiar to her, like the faint, gentle warmth of her father's teachings, like the residual aura of her clan's ancestors. "It recognizes me," she said quietly. "The gorge is guarding the seal, just as my ancestors did. It will not harm the last of the Shen bloodline." But the same was not true for their enemies. As they crossed the final mountain ridge and stepped fully into the bounds of hidden mist gorge, a cold, mocking voice drifted out from the endless white mist, clear and unobstructed, cutting through the dead silence. After 7 years of waiting, the little phoenix finally flies home. Murong Han's voice carried no anger, no urgency, only calm, triumphant certainty, as if he had been standing here waiting for their arrival since the very beginning. The mist ahead began to churn violently, swirling into a massive vortex that split open the thick white fog. A lone figure stood at the center of the gorge's empty basin, his snow-white robe fluttering in the cold spiritual wind, his long black hair untethered, his phoenix-shaped eyes cold and flawless. He had no subordinates beside him, no demonic guards, no hidden traps in sight. He awaited them alone. "You came earlier than I expected," Murong Han said, his gaze sweeping slowly over Shen Yu, lingering on the faint phoenix flame in her pupils. You burned your meridians to awaken the first seal layer overnight. Foolish, yet admirable. Your clan's stubbornness is truly ingrained in your blood. Shen Yu stepped forward, her voice cold and unyielding. Mirong Han, and your schemes. The 7-year game ends today. And Mirong Han laughed softly, the sound echoing hollowly across the empty gorge basin. This is not the end, Shen Yu. This is the beginning. The beginning of the true Phoenix Seal awakening, the beginning of a new world I will forge from the ashes of the old. He lifted his right hand, and the entire gorge's mist trembled violently. Countless black demonic runes surfaced beneath the white fog, spreading across the ground, winding up the gorge's stone walls, forming a massive ancient formation that enveloped the entire basin. Demonic energy and ancient gorge spiritual power intertwined, creating a terrifying field that suppressed all external cultivation. I have laid the heaven-devouring demon formation overnight, Mirong Han said calmly. Inside this gorge, your phoenix power cannot grow stronger, and his imperial sword intent cannot break free. We fight on equal ground. Li Zioqi's expression turned solemn. He had sensed the formation the moment they stepped into the gorge, its power far more profound and deadly than any ordinary dark vein array. Mirong Han had prepared meticulously, leaving no room for error. You've sacrificed half your core demonic power to set this formation, Li Zioqi said sharply. You're desperate to finish this today. I've waited 7 years. Mirong Han's eyes turned pitch black, thick killing intent surging forth. I have wasted enough time. Today, I will obtain the Phoenix Seal, refine the heavenly scripture, and overturn the entire Great Qian dynasty. He shifted his gaze back to Shen Yu, his tone dropping to a low, bewitching whisper. Last chance, little phoenix. Abandon your alliance with this imperial guard. Join me. Merge your pure phoenix blood with my demonic core. We will transcend both good and evil, rewrite the fate of this realm. Shen Yu did not hesitate for a single heartbeat. She drew her short sword in a blazing flash of silver, the phoenix birthmark on her wrist erupting with brilliant crimson light, righteous clan power surging through every inch of her body. I would burn my bloodline to ash before I walk the same path as a butcher who massacred my clan. Li Zioqi drew his long sword at the same time, golden orthodox sword intent bursting forth to counter the endless black demonic mist, forming a steady barrier beside Shen Yu. The two stood side by side once more, their auras intertwined, righteous and unyielding against the overwhelming demonic pressure. Mirong Han's smile faded completely. So be it. Today, I will baptize the phoenix seal with your blood and his corpse." The wind howled through the hidden mist gorge, the white mist and black demonic aura colliding violently, tearing the sky and earth apart. The final showdown for the Phoenix Seal, for the truth of the Shen Clan massacre, and for the fate of the entire Great Qian dynasty had finally erupted. Chapter 10, Heaven-Devouring Demon Formation. Black demonic tides roared across the gorge basin, rolling over the white spiritual mist and swallowing every trace of gentle ancient aura. Murong Han's figure blurred within the churning darkness, his white robe transforming into a phantom shadow that flitted across the formation runes. Every black rune glowed with a bloodthirsty cold light, locking down the entire space, sealing all paths of retreat and escape. Inside the heaven-devouring demon formation, the rules of cultivation were completely rewritten. Li Xiaoqi's towering golden sword intent, which once crushed demonic shadows with ease, was now suppressed and scattered the moment it surged outward. His blade's radiance dimmed visibly, the sharp orthodox power diluted by the formation's endless devouring force. He could feel his meridians being eroded by faint demonic poison with every breath, his steady consumption of spiritual power turning into a slow, relentless drain. Murong Han's cold laughter echoed through the swirling black and white fog, sharp and triumphant. "I told you equal ground." His voice came from all directions at once, distorted by the formation's chaotic spatial turbulence, making his position impossible to pin down. One moment his killing intent pressed down from the sky, the next it surged upward from the cracked earth beneath their feet, endless and elusive. Shen Yu's phoenix birthmark blazed brighter, crimson light spreading across her forearm and wrapping around her short sword like a burning flame. The formation's demonic erosion could suppress orthodox sword arts, but it could never fully devour the ancient phoenix bloodline, the natural nemesis of all dark vein evil arts. "He's moving through the runes," Shen Yu shouted sharply, her senses sharpened by her awakened bloodline. She could track the faint flow of demonic energy through the formation's veins, spotting the subtle shifts that marked Murong Han's movement. The formation's core is at the northern gorge cliff. Li Xiaoqi's gaze sharpened instantly. He adjusted his sword stance, no longer wasting power on wide-range suppression, condensing all his diluted golden intent into a thin, piercing blade edge. "Hold the front. I'll break his movement rhythm." The moment the words left his mouth, countless black shadow blades burst out of the fog, denser and deadlier than any ambush before. The formation amplified Murong Han's demonic techniques tenfold, turning every trivial shadow energy into a fatal piercing attack. The blades rained down like a demonic storm, covering every inch of the gorge basin, leaving no blind spots to dodge. Shen Yu did not flinch. She spun her short sword in a swift circular arc, crimson phoenix fire flaring outward in a circular barrier. The pure, ancient flame burned fiercely against the incoming shadow blades, turning every black shard into wispy smoke the moment it touched the phoenix light. The scorching heat of the bloodline purified the demonic corrosion, carving out a clean, safe zone amid the chaotic storm. Yet the cost was heavy. Her meridians, already scorched and weakened from the Night Seal awakening, screamed in agony. Sharp, stabbing pain spread from her chest to her limbs, and another thin stream of blood slipped from her lips. Her vision blurred for a split second, exhaustion crashing over her like a tidal wave. A shadow darted through the gap in her defense in that fleeting moment. Mirong Han reappeared directly in front of her, his demonic sword raised high, black runes swirling violently along the blade edge. His eyes were pitch black, stripped of all pretense and frivolity, filled only with the fanatical desire to seize the phoenix blood and seal. Got you. The demonic sword slashed downward with devastating speed, carrying the full power of the heaven-devouring formation, aimed straight at her phoenix birthmark, the core of her bloodline, the source of the ancient seal. Bang! A golden sword beam crashed into the demonic blade at the critical moment. Li Xiaoqi appeared beside her in an instant, his body positioned firmly between Shen Yu and Mirong Han, his long sword trembling under the overwhelming impact. The force of the collision sent cracks spider webbing across the gorgeous stone ground, and both men slid backward several feet, their stances shaking. Li Xiaoqi's palm was stained with faint blood, the backlash of the suppressed sword intent wounding his own meridians. "Don't lose focus," he gritted out, his voice low and strained. "He's targeting your bloodline, not just your life." Shen Yu steadied her breath, wiping the blood from her chin with the back of her hand. The pain in her body was unbearable, but the phoenix flame in her eyes burned brighter, fiercer, more unyielding. She finally understood Mirong Han's true plan. He did not need to kill them. He only needed to weaken her to the brink of collapse, force her phoenix blood to become unstable, and then harvest the agitated bloodline power to pry open the ancient seal. The formation was not built for battle, it was built to drain, suppress, and wear down the last phoenix of the Shen clan. "We can't fight his formation with brute force," Shen Yu said quickly, her mind racing to piece together her clan's ancient teachings. The heaven-devouring formation feeds on external spiritual and demonic power. The more we clash, the stronger it becomes. "Then what do we do?" Li Xiaoqi's gaze locked on Mirong Han, who was already gathering another wave of demonic energy. "We let it drain us dry." Shen Yu lifted her wrist, staring at the glowing phoenix birthmark, a desperate yet decisive plan forming in her mind. We stop fighting the formation. We awaken it. Chapter 11, Phoenix Seals Truth. Li Xiaoqi's eyes widened slightly, shock flashing across his sharp features. Awaken the formation. It's a dark vein demonic array. Your phoenix power will be eroded and consumed if you merge with it. No. Shen Yu shook her head firmly, her voice steady and resolute amid the howling demonic wind. This gorge is my clan's sacred land. The heaven-devouring formation is not a pure dark vein creation. Muronghan only overlaid his demonic runes on top of the original Shen clan guardian array. It was the hidden truth buried in her clan's fragmented ancient records, a secret even Muronghan had never fully uncovered. Thousands of years ago, the Shen clan built hidden Mist Gorge and laid a mighty guardian formation to protect the Phoenix Seal. The array was designed to devour all evil and foreign power that invaded the gorge. 30 years ago, when the Dark Vein sect first invaded the borderlands, Muronghan's ancestors corrupted the formation's outer layers with demonic energy, twisting its original purpose. Muronghan merely completed the corruption, renaming it the heaven-devouring demon formation and weaponizing it against his enemies. The core of this array still belongs to the Shen clan, Shen Yu said firmly. It answers only to Phoenix blood. If I pour my full bloodline power into the formation's core, I can override his demonic runes, reverse the array, and trap him inside his own trap. The risk was fatal, and they both knew it. Pouring all her remaining phoenix power into the formation would exhaust her bloodline completely, crippling her cultivation for life, or even burning her mortal veins to ash. There was no halfway, no retreat, no second chance. Muronghan heard every word, and a furious, mocking laugh burst from his lips. Ridiculous. You would sacrifice your own bloodline to reverse my formation. You're willing to cripple yourself just to stop me. He stepped forward, his demonic sword dragging across the stone ground, sending sparks flying. The black runes on his blade blazed violently, amplifying his killing intent to its peak. You think a half-awakened phoenix can override my 7 years of demonic refinement, Shen Yu? You overestimate your clan's legacy and underestimate me. He charged forward in a burst of black mist, his speed breaking the formation's spatial limits, his sword aimed straight for Shen Yu's heart to sever her bloodline core before she could activate her plan. Li Xiaoqi moved without hesitation. He stepped directly in Muronghan's path, raising his long sword to block the fatal strike. Golden light flared desperately against the overwhelming demonic power, his body trembling under the impact, blood seeping from the corners of his eyes. He burned his own spiritual power recklessly, pushing his suppressed cultivation to the limit to buy Shen Yu time. "Do it now!" he roared, his voice hoarse and strained. "I'll hold him off." Shen Yu did not hesitate another second. She closed her eyes tightly, letting go of all defense, all hesitation, all fear. She channeled every last wisp of phoenix power in her bloodline, pouring it outward without reservation. Brilliant crimson light erupted from her body, soaring into the sky and piercing through the layers of black demonic mist. The phoenix birthmark on her wrist blazed like a miniature sun, ancient clan runes surfacing across her skin, glowing bright red and spreading outward to cover every inch of the gorgeous formation runes. Boom! A heaven-shaking explosion of red and black energy swept through the entire gorge. The demonic runes laid by Muronghan began to crack, shatter, and peel away one by one, being burned and overwritten by the pure phoenix power. The devouring, oppressive aura of the demon formation faded rapidly, replaced by the grand, righteous guardian power of the original Shen clan array. Muronghan's face twisted with rage and disbelief. Impossible. This is impossible. He had sacrificed half his core to refine this formation, yet it was being stripped away, rewritten, and reversed by the phoenix blood he had spent 7 years craving. The demonic energy in his body began to backlash violently, his meridians tearing under the counter-force of the reversed array. A mouthful of blood burst from his lips, staining his spotless white robe crimson. At the same time, Shen Yu's body crumpled weakly to her knees. Her phoenix light dimmed rapidly, the blazing birthmark fading to a faint dull red. Her face turned deathly pale, all strength drained from her limbs, her meridians scorched and fractured from the desperate overexertion. She had successfully reversed the formation, but she had paid an unbearable price. The gorgeous mist cleared completely in an instant. The black demonic fog vanished, the oppressive killing intent dissipated, and at the very center of the gorge basin, a towering ancient stone altar emerged from the fading spiritual mist. Carved into the altar's surface were thousands of weathered ancient runes, recording the 1,000-year history of the Shen clan, the truth of the imperial conspiracy, and the complete text of the heavenly Phoenix scripture. The Phoenix seal, no longer a hidden bloodline power, but a tangible ancient relic, rested quietly atop the stone altar, glowing with gentle crimson light. The truth, buried for 7 years, buried under imperial lies and demonic schemes, was finally exposed to the light. Chapter 12, Ashes and Redemption. The gorge fell into a dead, heavy silence. The reversed Shen clan guardian array locked the entire basin in place, sealing Muronghan within the sacred barrier he had once corrupted. His demonic power was continuously suppressed and purified by the Phoenix aura, his cultivation declining rapidly with every passing second. Yet he did not panic, did not flee. He only stood there, staring at the ancient stone altar, his eyes bloodshot and wild, a broken, bitter smile tugging at his lips. "So this is the truth your clan guarded?" His voice was hoarse, weakened by the array's backlash, yet still laced with fanatical obsession. The Shen clan did not die for treason. You died because you discovered the imperial royal family's eternal life conspiracy. The runes on the altar clearly recorded the unspoken secret of the great Qian dynasty's founding. The royal family had relied on forbidden demonic cultivation to extend their reign, secretly colluding with the Dark Vein sect for centuries. The Shen clan, as the dynasty's righteous guardian clan, had discovered the truth 7 years prior and intended to expose it to the world. To silence the Shen clan, the royal court framed them for treason, bribed Jianghu forces, and ordered the full clan massacre. Muronghan and the Dark Vein sect were merely the sharp blade the imperial throne wielded to eliminate its greatest threat. Shen Yu knelt on the cold stone ground, her body trembling weakly, her voice soft yet clear enough to echo across the gorge. "You knew all along." Muronghan lifted his head, his gaze locking on her exhausted figure. "I knew. I was always their blade. But I was never their dog." His hatred was never only for the Shen clan, it was for the corrupt imperial court that manipulated everyone, that used Jianghu cultivators as pawns, that trampled lives and righteousness for eternal power. "I destroyed your clan to sever the court's last restraint," he said quietly. "I sought the Phoenix seal to overthrow the royal family, to burn this rotten dynasty to ash. My methods are evil, but my goal is the same as your clan's, to end this endless cycle of corruption and bloodshed." Li Zioqi stood beside Shen Yu, his sword still raised, his expression cold and calm. "Evil methods can never birth righteous endings. You killed countless innocent people, buried entire sects in blood, and turned the borderlands into a purgatory. Your vengeance is nothing but selfish tyranny." Muronghan did not refute it. He knew his hands were stained with endless blood, knew his path was irredeemable. But after a lifetime of darkness, betrayal, and manipulation, he had no other way to walk. "It does not matter now." He took a step forward, his figure unsteady, his demonic power fading rapidly under the guardian array's suppression. "The seal is open. The truth is exposed. The imperial court's lies are shattered." He lifted his hand, summoning the last wisp of his core demonic energy, not to attack, but to shatter the final hidden barrier on the altar. Countless stone tablets carved with the full truth of the 7-year massacre rose into the air, spreading across the entire Qingming border, visible to every cultivator, every official, every common person in the region. "I lose," Murong Han said flatly, no longer arrogant, no longer mocking. "But I have torn down the lies that buried your clan. The Shen clan's innocence is proven." The Guardian Array's phoenix power surged forth, wrapping around his body, eroding his last traces of demonic cultivation. His white robe fluttered in the wind, his black hair turning pale at the temples, his violent aura fading into quiet desolation. "Shen Yu," he said softly, his voice carrying the last trace of his youthful madness. "Live well. Live to witness the new world your clan died for." The crimson phoenix light completely engulfed him in the next instant. No explosion, no brutal death. Murong Han's figure dissipated into the gorgeous wind, his demonic core purified, his grievances scattered, leaving nothing behind but the broken truth of decades of chaos and conspiracy. The gorge fell into complete peace. The wind calmed, the mist settled, and the ancient phoenix seal on the altar glowed with gentle, warm light, blessing the land it had guarded for thousands of years. Li Zhaoqi immediately sheathed his sword and knelt beside Shen Yu, gently lifting her weakened body into his arms. Her eyes were half closed, her breath shallow, her body cold and frail after exhausting her bloodline. "You did it," he whispered softly, his voice filled with gentle relief and lingering distress. "Your clan is cleared. The truth is out." Shen Yu leaned weakly against his chest, staring at the glowing phoenix seal on the altar, a faint, genuine smile tugging at her lips, the first peaceful smile she had worn in 7 years. The hatred that had chained her soul for half her life finally faded. The weight of her clan's grievance, the burden of being the sole survivor, the fear of endless hiding, all of it was lifted at last. "It's over," she murmured. "It's over." Li Zhaoqi echoed her words softly, holding her steadily. "You don't have to run anymore. You don't have to fight alone anymore." Outside the gorge, the news of the imperial court's conspiracy and the Shen clan's innocence spread like wildfire across the borderlands. The corrupt officials who had participated in the massacre trembled in fear, while the people of Qingming rejoiced at the collapse of the long-hidden lies. The storm that had swept through the great Qian dynasty for 7 years finally subsided. The last phoenix of the Shen clan had risen from ash, burned away the darkness, and ushered in the light of truth. And in the quiet mist of Hidden Mist Gorge, 2 souls bound by shared grievance and shared redemption stood together, ready to step into a new future, no longer fugitive and guard only two people who had survived the darkness to chase the light. Chapter 13, Post-War Silence and Fading Phoenix. The morning sunlight finally pierced the thick gorge mist, spilling over the ancient stone altar and gilding the lingering crimson phoenix light. The violent spiritual turbulence that had shaken the valley for an entire day and night faded completely, replaced by a serene, ancient tranquility that had not settled over hidden mist gorge for 7 years. Dust and fine stone particles floated slowly in the warm air, settling on the cracked ground where demonic and righteous powers had clashed relentlessly. The broken black runes of Muronghan's formation turned to tiny ashes, drifting away with the mountain wind, erasing the last trace of his demonic tyranny from this sacred land. Lizaoki knelt on the cold stone, his arms gently cradling Shen Yu's frail body. He held her carefully, as if she were fragile phoenix glass that might shatter with the slightest careless movement. His black uniform was stained with faint traces of his own blood, the meridional wounds from blocking Muronghan's fatal strike still throbbing sharply, yet he felt no pain. All his attention was fixed on the unconscious girl in his arms. Shen Yu had fallen into a deep, exhausted slumber. Her long black hair scattered loosely over his forearm, her pale cheeks devoid of any trace of color, the faint phoenix flame in her pupils completely extinguished. The crimson birthmark on her wrist had faded to a pale pink shadow, quiet and dim, no longer glowing with the powerful ancient aura of before. She had burned nearly all her phoenix bloodline power to reverse the formation, expose the truth, and purify Muronghan's demonic core. She had won everything, cleared her clan's name, shattered the imperial lies, ended 7 years of endless bloodshed and hiding. But she had paid a devastating price. Her mortal meridians were fractured all over, her spiritual power dried up, her awakened phoenix bloodline dormant once more, locked in a deep slumber that no one could easily awaken. For all intents and purposes, her cultivation was gone, reduced to that of an ordinary mortal herbalist. "Rest well," Lizaoki whispered softly, his voice low and hoarse, carrying unspoken heartache. "I'll handle everything. No more lies, no more pursuits, no more bloodshed. You can finally sleep without fear." He lifted his gaze toward the ancient altar, where the phoenix seal rested quietly under the sunlight. The ancient relic no longer exuded overwhelming power, only a gentle, warm aura that nourished the gorgeous land silently. The stone runes on the altar were completely unfolded, recording every hidden sin of the great Qian royal family, every detail of the 7-year-old Shen clan massacre, and the century-long collusion between the imperial court and the Dark Vein sect. Outside the gorge, the world was already in chaos. The stone tablets Muronghan had scattered across the borderlands had spread the truth to every corner of Qingming. Commoners whispered in shock, cultivators fell into stunned silence, and local officials trembled in terror as the buried imperial conspiracy surfaced in broad daylight. Li Xiaoqi's elite guards had already controlled all border passes, blocking the escape routes of corrupt officials and remaining dark vein stragglers. The entire Qingming border, once a land of chaos and blood, was now locked in a tense post-war calm, waiting for the final judgment from the capital. Li Xiaoqi carefully adjusted his posture, holding Shen Yu steadily in his arms as he rose to his feet. He glanced once more at the phoenix seal on the altar, a faint, thoughtful glint flashing in his dark eyes. The seal had lost its violent power after the truth was exposed, yet it still guarded the last trace of the Shen clan's thousand-year heritage. It would stay here, rooted in the gorge, protecting this land that had witnessed too much grievance and redemption. He would not take it away. It belonged to the mountains, to the ancestors, to the peace that had finally returned. With slow, steady steps, Li Xiaoqi turned and walked toward the gorge exit. The morning wind brushed his robe, carrying away the last trace of demonic stench, leaving only the fresh scent of mountain grass and ancient spiritual mist. The 7-year feud was over. But the aftermath of the truth had only just begun to sweep across the entire Great Qian dynasty. Chapter 14: Capital Turmoil and Imperial Collapse. 3 days later, the news from Qingming border swept into the imperial capital like a raging hurricane, shaking the foundation of the Great Qian dynasty to its core. For 7 years, the royal court had brainwashed the people, preaching that the Shen clan were traitorous rebels who colluded with foreign enemies and endangered the dynasty. The imperial family had stood tall as righteous rulers, punishing treachery, and protecting the realm, enjoying the worship and support of the common people. But the stone tablets from Hidden Mist Gorge shattered all false glory in an instant. Carved with unalterable ancient runes, witnessed by countless cultivators and commoners, the truth was undeniable. The Shen clan had died for exposing the royal family's forbidden eternal life cultivation. The dark vein sex chaos was the imperial court's own doing. The 7-year bloodshed was nothing but the royal family's selfish massacre to cover up their crimes. The entire capital erupted in uproar. Commoners who had once cursed the Shen clan fell into deep remorse. Jianghu sects that had once allied with the court to hunt Shen Yu rose up one after another, condemning the imperial family's hypocrisy and cruelty. Loyal ministers who had been deceived for years knelt in the imperial court, demanding a thorough investigation and public judgment. The imperial palace fell into unprecedented panic. The aging emperor, who had relied on demonic cultivation to extend his reign for decades, collapsed on the dragon throne in rage and fear. His pale, withered face was twisted with terror, knowing that the false dynasty he had built with blood and lies was crumbling before his eyes. Seal the news. Kill all witnesses. Destroy those stone tablets. The emperor roared hoarsely, his voice trembling with desperation. But it was too late. The truth had spread across the entire realm. No amount of imperial suppression could erase the facts carved in ancient runes, no execution could silence the voices of millions. The corrupt ministers who had participated in the Shen clan massacre began to turn on each other, abandoning the royal family to save their own lives. The tight imperial power network that had ruled the dynasty for centuries collapsed completely overnight. Meanwhile, in the temporary mountain residence outside Qingming City, Shen Yu finally woke up. The room was quiet and warm, filled with the faint fragrance of healing herbs. Sunlight streamed through the wooden window, falling softly on the quilt covering her body. The sharp, endless pain that had tortured her for 7 years was gone, replaced by a weak but peaceful numbness. She slowly opened her eyes, her vision still slightly blurry, her body devoid of any spiritual power. She could not sense the phoenix bloodline in her veins, could not feel the resonance of the ancient seal, could not summon even a wisp of flame. She was an ordinary person now. No longer the last phoenix of the Shen clan, no longer the fugitive hunted by the entire Jianghu and court. Just Shen Yu, a girl who had survived endless darkness and finally walked into the light. You're awake. Li Zioqi's gentle voice came from beside the bed. He had been sitting quietly by her bedside for 3 days, guarding her waking moment, never leaving for a single step. He had changed out of his stained guard uniform, wearing a plain dark robe, his sharp aura softened completely. The wounds on his body had been treated, only a faint pale scar remaining on his palm, a silent memento of their life or death battle together. Shen Yu turned her head slowly, her gaze falling on his face. After experiencing life and death, conspiracy, and redemption, all the suspicion and wariness between them had faded completely. Only calm familiarity and quiet warmth remained. It's really over, she murmured softly, more to herself than to him. Li Zioqi nodded, leaning forward slightly, his tone gentle and reassuring. It's all over. The imperial conspiracy is exposed. The corrupt faction is collapsing. Your clan's innocence is known by